you the record and they will still be waiting for us. And the pressure grows to make a save and throw, to introduce some movie, turn the lights down low. My arms are exposed, I'm getting full of holes. Think I need another chorus. Sooner or later, the dice land on the table. You know that's what fables are made of. Everybody sing, oh yeah, it's a critical hit. Everybody sing, oh yeah, it's a critical hit. This is a critical hit. Oh yeah, it's a critical hit. Everybody sing, oh yeah, it's a critical hit. It's critical, critical. That ain't how we roll. Oh no, it ain't stolen. We on a roll. Hey, we on a roll. That ain't how we roll. Oh no, it ain't stolen. We on a roll. Hey, we on a roll. Sooner or later, the dice land on the table. You know that's what fables are made of. Oh yeah, it's a critical hit. Everybody sing, oh yeah, it's a critical hit. This is a critical hit. Oh yeah, it's a critical hit. Everybody sing, oh yeah, it's a critical hit. It's critical, critical. Everybody sing, oh yeah, it's a critical hit. Everybody sing, oh yeah, it's a critical hit. This is a critical hit. Oh yeah, it's a critical hit. Everybody sing, oh yeah, it's a critical hit. It's critical, critical. Everybody sing, oh yeah, it's a critical hit. Everybody sing, oh yeah, it's a critical hit. This is a critical hit. Oh yeah, it's a critical hit. Everybody sing, oh yeah, it's a critical hit. It's critical, critical.
Yeah, it's a critical hit. That's what I'm talking about. Hello, everyone. Welcome, Arvanauts. Welcome, everybody, to the third episode, episode 3 of Masters of the Dungeon. This is our Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Master Roundtable show that we do once a month. And I am very excited because we got a really awesome, esteemed panel of people to join with you. 2 of our regulars and, well, 3, because I'm one of the regulars, and then 2 special guests. But before I introduce them, just a couple of reminders about ways to support the stream, which, since I forgot to mention this before, is taking place on December 30th, 2017 at 8:15 Eastern. Wanted to make sure I got that timestamp in there. If you haven't already done so, please make sure to follow the channel. Please make sure, if you haven't already done so, to check out the Steam group with exclamation point Steam group, where you can hang out with us in between streams. Definitely check out as well the YouTube, exclamation point ArvTube, where you can check past broadcasts of this stream and this show and others. Exclamation point Discord will get you over to the Discord, which is always hopping and always has lots of cool stuff going on. And so that's a good thing as well. And financially, if you haven't already done so, there's a couple ways you can support the channel here as well. First of all, we do now have merchandise relating to one of my D&D campaigns, the Infinity and Beyond crew, which is currently playing through the Rise of Tiamat. We now have a shop, and there is some merchandise with their logo on it that you can get. So if you were looking for an awesome shirt or hoodie, if you didn't get the shirt or hoodie that you wanted, if you're like, you know what, everyone got me stuff, but they didn't get me the coffee mug that I truly desire and deserve, you can go over there by checking out Arv's shop. Thank you very much, Kilobyte. Also, you can, of course, support the channel with the more traditional methods of, first of all, the Patreon, which is exclamation point Arvtreon, currently sitting at 400. Would love to see that get north of 400. That allows you to inspire players during the D&D campaign. It also gets you lots of individual benefits, and it gets the channel towards some channel goals as well. So please consider doing that. That's a big part of helping support the channel, especially because 2018 is going to be a big year going forward for us. And the last thing, of course, is the sub button, that purple sub button you see above the window right there. All subs right now are discounted at 20%, so you can actually sub yourself, or you can gift a sub to somebody else, your favorite Twitch person, and you can gift them a sub so they can get more stuff like this: D&D, talk about Dungeons & Dragons, role-playing with the game book series. Currently we're doing Lone Wolf, but we've also done a lot of Fenny Fantasy game books as well, with live illustrations, also lots of role-playing game, video role-playing game type stuff, voiceover things, professional voiceover games and stuff like that. So all of that is available to you as well. But we have tonight, of course, the Masters of the Dungeon Episode 3 D&D panel show, and I have got an esteemed panel of judges, and I'm super excited about it. So I'm going to unmute myself so they can hear that we're about to go live with them, and then I'm going to unmute them, and then I'm going to move over there. Dun, 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 dun. With the magic of technology, they are there, just where I left them. The crew is all here, and we have got 2 regulars along with me and 2 special guests. And so I'm going to allow them all to introduce themselves to the wonders of chat. See, that's my reaction too, Kenna. Just the shocked, how can it possibly be face. That's exactly the way I feel. I'm going to work around from me going counterclockwise, and I'm going to start, therefore, right below me, the man who's wearing a hat that is quite appropriate for the weather that we're dealing with in the Northeast here. So for those of you who have 10-degree weather or less, Dave has got the right outfit for it. So even though, but Dave, don't you live in Florida or the South or something like that? Don't you live south of the Mason-Dixon?
I do, Arv, and it is cold down here. I think some of that Erie, Pennsylvania weather has kind of blown down here.
What is Florida cold? Come on. What is
Florida cold? Is you can still wear shirts, but the apocalypse is happening.
It's like 50 and you're like,
yeah, there's a lot of people around here that are starting to cover their plants, cover their orange trees or banana trees.
Cover their plants.
I'm covering my noggin with this nice hat that I got and yes, I bought this in Florida. In Orlando, I got this in a reduced box of hats, and it was like $5, so I had to buy it. It's got that cool Russian look to it,
Nice. And I remember those days when we had plants before they were all destroyed by the winter is coming of Game of Thrones. But it is a pleasure to have Dave with us. Dave, welcome from the Digital DM. How are you, sir? Why don't you just briefly introduce yourself for the fine folks who do not yet know you?
I'm David, and I have a YouTube channel, Digital Dungeon Master, and I also stream games here on Twitch Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, of course, like everybody else. But of course, I was the first one to do D&D about 5 years ago. So, blah, 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 and Pathfinder, Starfinder. Pathfinder's not as much, but any game, if it's good, I'll play it. So, hey.
Good stuff. Good man. Always a pleasure.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year. Always a good pleasure always a pleasure to have Dave with us.
Drink and drive. And it's always a pleasure to be here with you, Arv.
Oh, thank you. And with that, I'm going to move on to one of our special guests today. And this, of course, is a person who should need no introduction, at least to some of you in chat, including Trendane, who may know him just a little bit. But this is, of course, a video store cowboy, also known as Johnny, which is what I've put him under. And Johnny, it's a pleasure to have you. Welcome. And yeah, again, can you introduce yourself for the fine folks? Did you say California cold? So are you in Cali? Is that true?
I'm in Northern California right now, and California cold is, of course, 50 degrees. And, just kind of dealing with, the plants starting to get a little frosty. And
yeah, it's great having you and Dave on. That'll be enough. And no, I'm just kidding. Sorry to cut.
Oh, come on. I grew up in Southern California where cold is, it's not 70 degrees. So, hey, my name is Johnny. I run the Video Store Cowboy channel. You can find me all over the place at Video Store Cowboy. I'm also the GM for 6 and 20, which we'll get into, which is some crazy collaboration project across a couple of Twitch channels. So I just want to say before anything else, thank you for having me here. And I absolutely loved the Christmas Carol last week. Watched the entire thing.
Thank you.
That was phenomenal. So just got to say it.
Thank you. Well, you know what? It's the voice people, as you know from having played with Trendane, the voice people are just amazing, and having George and Tren and Rob on board makes it super cool. So, but yes, thank you. I will pass that on to them as well. That was a lot of fun. My favorite story of all time. So, and I love Blades in the Dark too. And I'm going to be, I'm looking forward to talking to you more about that. Moving right along as we move over, the inimitable one, the man himself, who I see the beard is starting to come back slowly, ever so slowly. By 2050, Will, you may have arrived at the return. I'm just kidding. But that, of course, is our good friend.
Hey, that was a 1,000-pound beard.
No, definitely. At least 1,000 pounds. Will, hello, Will from Encounter Roleplay. Good to see you, my friend. How are you? Can you introduce yourself to those who do not know you as yet?
I'm well. My name is Will. I'm a D&D sex icon.
I
run Encounter Roleplay and all that stuff.
I was just like, where else do we go from there? I don't even.
I mean, that's really it.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. Play Dungeons and Dragons all over a bunch of people, and now I'm here to talk about it some more. But on Christmas break actually, so I haven't been really doing any D&D recently. So this is my fix until Monday, in which I start all the new seasons of shows. So I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Always a pleasure to have Will on board. And also, quickly, this is a chance to talk about your Kickstarter, man, which is still running for another few hours, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, we're on Kickstarter. We just hit stretch goal on £4,000, which is some amount of dollars. And it's for Blood
I think
Plague.
it's $50,000.
Yeah, that's 500,000 US, clearly.
Yeah.
And yeah, we have less than 24 hours left to go. I'll put a link there in chat in case anyone.
Yeah, definitely throw a link up there. It is, it's Blood Plague, which is your homebrew thing, right?
It is. It's my homebrew world. It's the world I run our podcast Turncloaks in, and we've got a bunch of new campaign setting books and things coming out for it in 2018. So keep your noggins and your eyes out. Keep them peeled like a clementine.
Right, that's exactly what we want to do. Like a citrus fruit. Keep your eyes peeled. That's awesome, man. But seriously, Will is very good people, as I've said before, so always a pleasure to have Will on board here as well. And last but certainly not least, someone who I am very happy to have back on. I had Lauren actually as one of my players along with Will for the Adventures in Middle-earth campaign for a while, until she was so busy with her burgeoning career that I understood it. Like, we were sort of, left behind. No, I'm just kidding. But she had to go do other things. But Rosie Burrows is not forgotten. Lauren, it is a pleasure to have you on board. And yeah, can you introduce yourself as well for the fine folks?
Yes, I am Lauren Irwin, film grad student by most hours of the day, RPG player by weird times since Will's in Britain, newbie DM over at Encounter Roleplay, starting my first campaign there on Monday.
Huzzah! That's what I'm talking about.
Yes,
that's good stuff. That's good stuff. Now, are you prepared to live up to the Encounter Roleplay legacy that has been established? Because you have to answer to Will, who is a fierce boss. So I'm just curious.
The whip.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I was like, that can't even last for 3 seconds. But anyway,
No.
Awesome. It is a pleasure to have you on board. It's a pleasure to have everyone here. So what we're going to do, folks, for the next couple hours with you is we're going to talk a little bit about, first of all, talk a little bit about our own campaigns, and then talk about the subject of the day, and then move on to some product review and some Q&A from chat. If you have questions for us, feel free to drop them in chat, but also if you want to hold on to them, we'll be able to address them more fully a little bit later in the show as well. And if I haven't already said it, go follow all these people, because all of them are awesome. Seriously, they're all great people and they're all doing great content. And so please go follow all these people. So I'm going to go back in the other direction. And Lauren, I want to start with you. Now, you haven't started the campaign yet, but it is a homebrew campaign. So I basically ask people to sort of highlight something cool which happened to them within this campaign. So I guess, is there something you can, without spoiling too much, like about the coolness of your world that you want to highlight? Like something people are like, oh, damn, I've never seen that, or would love to see that aspect of things?
Yeah, well, I was pretty proud of what I came up with for the beginning and how to kind of throw everyone into it. I gave them a heads up of a way to bring the party together with them. And Will knows this, and all of them know it, just being stuck to this weird box and coming up with ways they got there. But that's how we're going to start, just right in the middle of it with them all together. Yeah.
I love how everybody immediately starts miming. It's just like, so we're all Marcel. And yeah.
Yes, I would like you to do that on Monday as well, Will. Just really commit, please.
I can do that. Yeah.
Okay, great. But I thought that was good. That was the initial idea for it. And then I just started going through every single campaign book that I own and looking for what could be in the box and just throwing things around with some friends. So I was proud of that. I like that way of just kind of going in medias res and just throwing them in.
That's cool. It reminds me a little bit of sort of a Numenera feel, like sort of something you would just expect, like, and you're in a box or you're attached to a box, and you're like, yep, that's the way this works. So
That's
cool.
what's
That's
happening.
that's
Here we
cool.
go.
How many players do you have for that, Lauren? How many people?
As of today, 5.
Nice.
Yes.
Okay, cool. I am looking forward to that. Neat. That's cool. And yeah, getting one idea that becomes the sort of foundation of a campaign is cool. That's good stuff.
And you can watch the trailer here.
Oh,
And you can find the
look.
trailer right in this spot. Oh, you guys, you did a trailer for it?
Yeah,
God
the
damn it,
trailer
Will.
for all the
Listen,
shows.
all right?
Character sheets.
All the rest of us are just like, oh, wow, Will did something super professional. What a shock. God damn it.
Oh, wait, no, it's down there. It's
This
this
is not guerrilla DMing, okay? This is sold out corporate. No, I'm just kidding. You got trailers for all the shows. Wow, seriously. This is what happens. He ups his game, and then we're all like, all right, fine. And then
All right.
you know,
No,
like
he's all right, fine, and then we are all forced to go and off and actually do the
right,
rest of it.
exactly.
We're
Exactly.
following here.
Exactly. Well, speaking of leading, Will, why don't you tell us, out of one of your 60 quadrillion campaign setups that you got, can you tell us something really cool that happened in one of them, a highlight that you might have from nothing cool has ever
Yeah,
happened?
no, I could. I was actually going through the clips from the year recently. So on Twitch, collected all of the clips for
Yeah, it was cool.
this year and kind of put some memorable ones together. Memorable moment we had the other week was the finale of the Call of Cthulhu campaign, which I think I talked about a couple of months ago when it was last year.
Yep.
And it came to a emotional ending with all of the cast in tears and ruins. So yeah, it was a very powerful ending to a campaign that we'd been running for months and months and months. 8 months, 9 months, maybe.
Nice.
So yeah, it was a tough one, and it was kind of like, oh man, like this is why we play role-playing games, because to live vicariously and have feelings. Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and it was weird because it's a horror game, right? So you wouldn't think that you're gonna have that many kind of emotional moments to it, but it was really powerful. So that was my highlight of the month. The video has actually just gone up on YouTube, actually, so that's why it was in my mind. And I'm looking forward to doing the next season with the same crew, different characters, but move on from that experience as a team together. Now the group are really, like, you know, fused together now. So yeah, it's really nice.
I like the idea that Call of Cthulhu new characters, because no one's ever said that again. So with all new characters for the new show of Call of Cthulhu, that's pretty cool. And yeah, it is true. You've had a few really good finales actually of late that I got to watch. There was of your stuff. So it's cool, man. It's cool. Good players, good DM. That's how that leads together. Speaking of being in tears, I have to say that, Johnny, one of the most powerful finales that I've seen in a long time happened at the end of, I guess it was season 1 of Blades in the Dark. No. I don't know if it's the end of season 1, but it was when Louise's character left, when she left, season 2. That was really, really impressive. And so I want to ask you the same question. And in your case, I'm asking it obviously about Blades of the Dark, because you're the nutcase that decided to have people have groups across multiple days. And like, can you explain how that even worked and why you decided that was something you could handle and not go insane?
So I originally got involved in doing that by, I ran a one shot of Blades in the Dark on May Gaming's channel, on Mike's channel, and had a really good time. And he started talking to me about the possibility of doing that, as a campaign on his channel. And at the same time, I had, as we were having that conversation, I jumped onto Not So Speedrun's channel, Speedy's channel, and ran a one shot for him. And all of a sudden, I've got him coming and saying, "Hey, do you want to run a campaign on my channel?" I said, "Well, hey, I've got something going on with Mike. Let's get together and talk about this and see if there's some way we can work this out."
Freeway this.
And that's the way it basically came about. It was sort of this, weird sort of, there was limbs involved and all kinds of drugs. And, at the end of it, we started with 2 shows. And then when the second season hit, we went with 3 shows. And it's a collaboration where we're going to be ending it very soon. And we're so happy we're going to do another one completely, which is the thing that I'm talking to Lauren about privately. That particular episode That particular episode was incredibly hard for a number of reasons. Because we knew it was coming for a long time. We actually knew that she was going to be stepping away from the show for almost a month.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody wanted to talk about it. Nobody wanted to deal with it. And she and I finally just came up with a way that seemed like the most poignant. And what happened was she got an opportunity to say goodbye in character to everybody. And then there was lots of crying going on as she was out of character at the end of it, as we were saying goodbye again. And so it was 45 minutes of just so much love and admiration for a character and for a player. Louise is somebody who is just, and I know Will works with her all the time. She's amazing.
Oh, she's crazy good. Just from a distance, I can tell she's crazy good. Yeah, she's really, really good.
I would have her at my table again in a heartbeat. I would bend over backwards just to make sure that she is involved if that's possible, because I can't even go even farther than that, because I think about it. It's like, yeah, it's unbelievable. And I feel very blessed to have been at that table as that was going on, because all of the players were giving their best that night. So
it was awesome stuff, man. You also did a very good job at. I want to give you credit for letting the game breathe a little bit. I know that's part of what Blades in the Dark does, but I think you've done a very good job at allowing the players. I'm a big believer in letting the players also tell the story and not being like, I'm the star, let me tell you the story. Like, it's a collaborative effort. So you did very well with that to make that moment a possibility. And by the way, just a general comment to everybody out there watching, it's an example of how it has nothing whatsoever to do with the setting. It has to do with the way that you link the players together within the setting. It doesn't matter if they're criminals like in 6 and 20, or if they're on their way to death with the old ones in Call of Cthulhu. Like, it makes no difference. It is about the relationships that are built and discussed, and people will buy into that. If you're talking Sith Lords or like whatever, like they will buy into it. So yeah, but kudos to you, because I was, like I say, just very impressed with the way that whole segment of things was handled. So good stuff. And speaking and as another person who has done a number of places where you've had, I feel like, Dave, you've been able, a lot of your players have stuck with you. So I feel like, whereas we had the sort of people saying goodbye, I'm sure you've had to have people leave and come back, but people stay with you, man. They like the continuity you provide, I think. It seems to me, in your adventures.
You have a lot of players that I've had a couple players that have been there for mostly over 4 years now.
Wow.
And we've done everything from, classic D&D to 4th edition to 5th edition to Zombie Apocalypse and Savage Worlds. I mean, there's just a numerous amount of role-playing games, and it's been fun. I'm doing a couple of games now. I'm doing a Tomb of Annihilation currently, and we kind of branched off from Adventurers League, and I've also got a Starfinder game going, and I also have a Ghost of Dragonspear Castle. I like the Ghost of Dragonspear Castle. It's probably one of the most well-written adventures in 5th edition, in my opinion.
Yeah, very solid.
So, I've taken that from back when it was D&D Next back in 2014, and I've had to do a little bit of converting to it to make it playable to where the rule set is now. So that's been fun. We just finished part 3 of that. So we're taking a little break, and I'm kind of going to throw them for a loop because there's a year, as you know, you've done this before as well.
Yep.
There's a year break between part 3 and part 4.
Yep.
So we are going to have some fun doing something totally different. I've told them just expect a surprise. So the surprise,
which every player loves to hear from DMs, right? Like, expect a surprise.
That.
No, God, no, please, no surprise.
I want to say so bad what it is right now, but I just can't because it would just ruin the surprise. So
would you mind posting that privately in Discord, or not in Discord, in chat for us in the
yeah, sure. I'll do that here in a couple of minutes. So I'm looking forward to doing that. So, but I've got 3 games that are pretty much on Twitch right now, down from about 6 games. So I've had to kind of trim back a little bit lately, and I'm kind of backing down from the YouTube channel a little bit. And once I get moved, I'm moving to El Paso, Texas at the end of January. Once I get moved, I'll start ramping it up a little bit. once they get acclimated to that El Paso
Yeah.
fire water that they have in the ground there.
That brutal weather of
Houses
Texas.
in every corner, and the taco houses with the hot sauce. Oh yeah, once I get acclimated,
Oh,
we'll be
man.
back in full blast.
Once you get the temperatures acclimated.
How do you say that, Arv? We'll be going balls deep.
I will be not Texas. What I love about that, by the way, is that the temperature somehow you've managed to go to a place that's even theoretically, because El Paso is
There's just less humidity.
okay,
there.
but still
Plus,
still warm. I'm just pointing out.
Humanity, dude.
Still caught up with temperatures.
Humanity there.
I'm just all caught up with temperatures still. That's awesome. Well, I have, as I think I've talked about on here before, I have 3 campaigns myself, which are running as well. And one, well, there's one that I can't talk about, but I have a surprise for chat, hopefully coming up very soon, that I hope to be able to confirm in the next couple of weeks about something that might be happening additionally D&D related, he said. But in the meantime, I've got the 3 that I'm doing, and I did want to highlight something that came up in my Infinity and Beyond campaign, which is running through The Rise of Tiamat. We had a whole sub thing that happened with one of the characters who's a drow played by Rob, who's one of my voice actors that, Johnny, you would have seen in Christmas Carol last week. And Rob is playing Ryuvi Darkcrasher, who's a drow that was basically sent to get to basically take out this guy who had done these terrible things to the Underdark. And then he found this party, and he kind of got, as they see it, as his superiors see it, sidetracked. So they ended up warning him and finally kidnapping him. And so the party had to basically go and find him. And that was surprising to me. And the reason I bring it up is because I was thinking about what you guys were saying about the impact of people that were together for a while, because that party, that campaign now has been running close on 2 years now. And so those guys have been together for a lot, and they've, we've played a couple sessions every month. So there's been a number of sessions that are, a lot of hundreds of hours at this point, probably, of play. And getting him back was, I think, powerful for them, because they first of all, they were all into it. They were into this sort of moment, but there were some callbacks to characters, to NPCs they had met before. There were things that happened to them. And there were a couple of really awesome moments that there's this one thing that happened. Ryuvi, Rob's character, was very upset about it. And he comes to Trendane, since he's in chat, Trendane's character, and does this whole thing about, how do I address this anger? How do I handle this anger? And I was just like, this is the part where chat knows I sit back in my chair and I just watch. And I'm just like, I will now silence my mic and I will watch as you people do awesome things. It was totally compelling. Like, just, and chat was doing a lot of the like pog champs, like, oh crap, what's going to happen now? Like, it was great. And when people can really adopt characters that way, both players and people who were watching the players perform, it's pretty awesome. So I wanted to give a shout out to the role players there, because it was great. So, cool. Well, so I want to throw this open, and I'm not going to throw this to anyone specifically. I want us to talk a little bit then about the subject of the day, and this comes up through several questions that were posed to me, and I wondered what you folks thought about it, and it's about balancing combat and role play. Now, some people have talked about the idea that this is a false choice because you can do both of them together. If so, great. I'd like to hear how from all of you. But I'm curious about, for those of you who have players that are like, I very much love it when I'm just destroying 1 million kobolds or the equivalent, versus those who are like, I really love it when I'm talking about like Baron Harkonnen style political intrigue on Arcanus. You know what I mean? Like that sort of heavy RP combat. Yeah, whatever. But can we get back to RP? So I am curious how you guys balance it, either yourselves personally in terms of your interests, or if you have players that are radically different in terms of what they like and don't like. And I will throw that to whoever who wants to talk about that.
I have a player. A lot of my viewers like one of my players. He plays a character named Omi Barton, and he is a bard, and he is a bard that is from the College of Spoon lore, and it's something that we created. And he loves spoons, and it's crazy. He does a lot of tours in like the Laughing Goblin Tavern or the Gushing Eye, and he has these shirts that he gives out to everybody, the Spoon the World T-shirts. And he plays a really good bard. And when he is giving away his bardic inspiration, he'll always come up with something, some little catchphrase to tell the player and to inspire him for that bardic inspiration. So I like that. And, and this is sort of like I don't know, it's sort of like you're walking a fine, you have to know when you start a game, is it going to be an RP heavy game or is it going to be more tactical? Because there are some players, and this is where screening goes into play and all of this other stuff, where some people just like combat, some people like role play, some people like a little bit of each. And I think I do a good balance of both tactical and role play and intermingling them together. So especially with the jousting between the jesting and stuff between players and NPCs and stuff. So yes, there can be a lot of role play, there can be a lot of combat, but it's good to mix them. But you got to have the players to do that, because like I said, back in the early days when I started getting into this, it was basically all tactical. Nobody wanted to role play. It would just be dead silence, and I'm doing like crazy corny voices and stuff like that, and I'm getting no response at all. So I was like, okay, I think I need to do a little bit better job of screening players instead of just taking the warmest body that just like walks through the door wanting to play. So
and of course you did test their temperature and the humidity.
Right. Back when I used to have to beg people to play in my games and stuff, now it's a little bit easier to find players and stuff. So, I mean, screen your players, and then you can do what you want to do with the heavy mix of role play or all role play or combat and stuff like that. So
I'll buy that. What say the rest of you?
Yeah, I use US Customs as my
NSA
model for
Great.
Yeah. I personally enjoyed just doing a lot of roleplay stuff, so I tend to end up, selfishly doing that more. But then also, Dave's right. The channel is about role playing, really. So I don't even bother making maps or anything like that, really. So kind of just end up doing that, really, because the people that I play with are into the role playing stuff. And then there was a time where I did a game with a friend of mine named Keith, and he was like, I really want to do combat in D&D. Like, he just wanted to play D&D to play with models, basically. I was like, all right, sick, man. Like, well, here's this like role-playing thing, and like here's this, and also like in this combat, so I started to kind of feed it to him during the combat, and introduced it and he fucking loved it. He was well into it once he understood what it was. So yeah.
So you didn't get a lot of resistance to it once you showed it to him.
No, he was quite aboard it, really. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Trent's right. I've got roleplay in my name. I also have encounter in my name, so like the focus is on roleplay.
Have you ever had a player, Will, that was really kind of a little timid to roleplay, maybe a little shy, and then as the game progresses and the campaign goes on, I've noticed that most of the time players will start to open up a little bit, and as the campaign goes on, they'll get more into character. They'll start coming up with some crazy voices. They'll start interacting with PCs in a different way from when they first started and stuff. So that's what I've noticed in the 4.5 years of DMing, but I've been playing for 25, 30 years. I've noticed that people will open up a little bit more, and these are the players that would rag me off the air and call me all these names for doing all of my voices and stuff, and then they're the ones that are starting to open up now in role play. So that's pretty cool.
Absolutely. I've had players before as well who are a bit more timid in playing. Usually it's the kind of lead by example. If the rest of the group are doing it, they end up kind of going with it as well, because you're the odd one out if you're not doing it in that case. Yeah.
So I'm curious. I want to ask Johnny, and then I want to ask Lauren how the homebrew campaign is going to be combat-wise. But I'll start with Johnny first. Given the nature of Blades in the Dark and that system, which is, it feels like the system is much more collaborative, and it's almost, I mean, that thing you do at the end of these sessions where you're kind of like, it's almost like, how do you guys think you role played? And I'm like, wow, I was just thinking about friends of mine. If I had played that with them, they would have been like, I think I was tremendous. Can I be level 15 now? Like they would not have taken it with I don't think they would have gone into it with a fair mind about it. But I'm curious about what you do in terms of combat versus the rest of role play. How is combat handled in that system? How did you imagine it as you were kind of putting this together to DM those things?
So the surprising thing to me, so the system is incredibly simple in a lot of ways, right? It's D6s, and the resolution system is pretty straightforward. I expected, to be completely honest, the first time that I ran the game, there was a combat heavy ending, and I expected it to always be that way. I expected the players to just step up and continue to be murderous thieves. The game is designed to give you permission to be a villain, which is an incredibly rare thing. And so what it does is it ends up freeing people to sometimes do the darkest things in their minds, and sometimes it gives them an opportunity to strive for being the lighter side of that in an incredibly dark world.
Okay.
So that feeds into combat, because combat isn't something that we run into in a lot of cases. The players tend to find their way through a situation by either talking their way through, manipulating their way through, putting somebody else in harm's way so that they're not actually taking any type of direct engagement. In a lot of ways, it's a lot like playing diplomacy. There's a fair bit of manipulation that is going on. But when combat does happen, it is incredibly intense, and it happens very quickly, and it's done almost within a short period of time. And I have tried to throw things at them to make the combat last. The one time that I can remember combat lasting for longer than maybe 20 minutes, the players dominated because they kept outstepping everything that I was throwing at them, because they had at that point already planned and plotted what that big fight was going to look like and how they were going to win when they got to it. Right? They knew that combat is so rare that they're just going to dominate because of how they worked together. So, I mean, I can think of 3 sessions out of probably 55 sessions where we've had some serious combat, and otherwise it's typically situations where they talk themselves out, or it's I stab somebody in the back, or I cut their throat and they're dead.
Wow.
Yeah. So the game is incredibly, permissive with just getting through a situation in any way, shape, or form. And they have found ways to just not have to have a fight. Which you personally prefer? I mean, if it were up to you, or would you rather that they be, because you talked about wanting to extend the combats. When you said that thing about 20 minutes, every D&D DM of it, we were all like, huh, because we're all like, I would kill to have a 20-minute combat. Like, even in 5e, combats tend to be longer. So, but anyway, I'm curious. So would you want combats to be longer or not? So I'm of the mind that I want to do what's right for the players and then what's right for the audience. And a lot of the time, what's right for the players tends to be them, finding the best way through a combat situation, whether it's, a quick out, or it's an extended fight where they're just going to take down whoever this big bad is, right? Okay. I personally don't have a preference because I enjoy running it all. I mean, I've run D&D 5e before. I started out in AD&D. So, I've run combat on a number of different systems and enjoy each of them. I like the idea that in Blades in the Dark, I don't honestly have any control over what's actually going to happen. I just react to them and what they're doing. So if combat lasts longer, great. If not, great. It just gives me that much more of an opportunity to, improv or, develop the story in a different direction. And so combat is more story driven, a lot more story driven for us in Blades in the Dark than it is in, say, D&D. So I have a good time with it. It's fun. That's cool.
So Lauren, is your world going to be obviously you're not going to know till you actually get there, but do you anticipate a lot of fisticuffs going on in the adventure that you're doing, or not, if you had your preference?
It's interesting because when I run established modules at home, I often feel like certain sections of them just have combat as the solution. I think, and the players I've played with often, try other ways of getting out of it. But since I was putting this together myself, I knew one thing I wanted to do with this kind of opening idea with all the players together was not go into initiative unless they ask for it, because I feel, especially in D&D 5e, once that's on the table, it's like violence is the only solution. So at least that's how it feels. Whether or not that's actually true, I think there's some trigger with that roll for initiative. Okay, force, here we go. So I wanted to make sure that with this, to set up with this first encounter, that there are multiple ways to go about finding a solution to their situation without necessarily going into combat mode. God, I am jealous of the 20-minute thing Johnny said, because there's a reason, like when I'm a player, usually I will do anything to avoid combat, because I just know I'm like, okay, now this is going to take about an hour and a half, depending what DM I'm with. Will's quick. Some of my home games are not so much. Like in my Curse of Strahd campaign, it's like, oh my god, we play for 4 hours, guys. If we start combat now, it's going to take an hour and a half, and I don't want to do it. So I'm hoping to always present solutions to the characters' goals that are not necessarily combat oriented. Although, I mean, I enjoy combat. I enjoy it when the show that we just finished with Will DMing, combat was a lot of fun. But I think especially when you're doing streaming anyway, what I found is I definitely prefer watching things that are more role play heavy.
Right.
At least for me, like watching a 3-hour fight can be entertaining if you're invested in the characters and what they've done and why they're doing this, but just randomly, no, I wouldn't think it would be that interesting.
That's fair. Yeah, I think one of the interesting things that I sometimes get the question about how much combat gets put into a book that you write, right, when I'm sitting on a writing panel. And the interesting thing is that for all combat sequences, it's my belief that combat is explicated by and explicates the sections in between the combat. So, for example, if you look at the most classic of Christmas movies, Die Hard, and that is what it is, a Christmas movie. Anyway, there is this, for those of you who haven't seen it, I'm about to spoil it for you, but it did come out in the mid-'80s, so come on, people.
Oh my god.
I think we're past spoiler territory at this point, but when has everyone, by the way, before I go any further, has everyone in this call, seen Die Hard? I hope at some.
Yes.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure. I just want to be clear. So
Will is silent.
Yeah.
Is it a PG movie? If not, like.
I don't know whether to take you seriously, Will. I don't.
I fucking watch Die Hard.
All right, okay, good. All right. Well, the reason
Will, he's so good.
he's so easy. When Al shoots the guy right at the end, and there's that dramatic moment where the dun 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 dun, the camera like pans up and you see Al's face. The thing that makes that matter, the thing that makes you care about it, is not the moment. Frankly, if you just saw him shoot somebody, you'd be like, great, that's the 700th person who got shot this movie, so I don't know why that matters. The reason that you're like, oh, crap, is because of the conversation that was had with Al and John McClane in the tower for much of the movie. So you get to know these two characters, right? The combat, if you will, matters because of what you found out about them in between the combats. And that's the same thing I would argue for what happens in a lot of the D&D sessions that we do, is when combat happens, it matters because of everything that happened before it. And it is an emphasis, right? It's a punctuation mark. It's a look at this just happened. You guys, both Lauren and Will, know that in the Adventures of Middle Earth campaign, combat is much less frequent than it would be even in a typical D&D campaign. And I actually I'm looking at a comment that somebody left on day 2 of AME, which was 2 sessions with no combat, amazing. And I have to say that when I first started doing it, I was a little concerned because even though I am more of myself a role-play person than a combat person, I like combat okay, but role-play is that's my wheelhouse. That's what I really love to do. When I was doing this, my concern was that people might be like, oh God, Tolkien, too much with all the elves and the blah, blah, blue, and and I was like, that's what I love, but I didn't know if other people would love it too. And the thing is that everyone that I've talked to who have watched these things loves the fact that when the combat happens, and it does happen sometimes, we had one in our last session, it sort of stands out precisely because it doesn't happen all the time. It's kind of a slower burn. And so that really struck me that there is like this, I think people want to see more role play and not as much combat as I thought they would. I don't know what I thought people would want, but I just had this image that that's where the excitement lies for everyone who's not playing. But I actually think it seems like the excitement is for people watching characters develop and interact with each other. Do you guys agree? Am I nuts? Like, it seems like that's what I've gotten from viewers, and I didn't expect that before.
It's been my experience, yeah. In terms of like wow moments or moments that the community will remember, or really take moments to keep talking about them, the stories that are still told, that kind of thing. They've all been like role-play moments, really. They haven't been, do you remember that time that your critical hit that orc and his head came off in that really funny way? Like, yeah, like that happens too sometimes, but like, okay, maybe that's a bad example, but do you remember that like 5-hour fight we did with that random troll in the dungeon? But no one remembers that. Like
everybody kept hitting it for 2 damage, and it kept regenerating its life every round. It was just impossible.
We just all sat around for voicing a whole day. No one remembers that. But like, you remember the bit where, do you remember when they confronted the villain all along, and there was this big revelation moment, or when a party member left, and we had this super emotional scene. Those are the moments that I found that I remember, and that other people communally remember as well, and stories that get retold.
I think those are even great moments for people playing the game, right? Those moments. I mean, talking about going back to Blades in the Dark and talking about a game that Trindane was at during our first season over on Speedy's channel. One of the players, Joff, had been playing a character who really hadn't found his voice or found his moment, for most of the first season. So we were about 9 episodes in, and there was an event where their current headquarters, or HQ, was being raided by essentially the police officers of the world. And all of a sudden he steps up. And not only does he step up in character, but he steps up in combat. And that combat became incredibly impactful because it went from they're in trouble, oh shit, to he took on 6 characters, or 6, of the officers immediately, and then took out another 4. And the rules of the game gave him that opportunity to have that heroic moment, even though he was being a bad guy and killing, essentially law officers who were actually corrupt. But that's beside the point. That moment to me was the defining moment for that character and that player. And I had, viewers come up afterwards and say, yeah, that was an incredible moment, to watch him sort of come to his own. So I absolutely think that it's not just about the audience. I think it's really about those of us around the table as well. For sure.
I think an issue could be, players love treasure. Players love to get experience. And I think sometimes players will sometimes think, well, we have to fight if we want to get treasure, if we want to get, experience points. But the way that I do it as a dungeon master, if they can bypass these encounters by, negotiating or role play, or maybe paying off this bandit that is stopping them in the middle of the road and demanding, a fee to pass his toll on the road that he owns, even though he doesn't.
Yep.
So there's ways that you can bypass, tactical combat encounters. And, sometimes I wish players would do it more, but as a DM, reward your players for doing that. Just because they don't kill something, give them a reward anyway. give them some experience, give them the encounter worth of experience that they've handled the situation and gotten through it without even drawing a sword.
Can I ask you? Yeah, can I ask you a question there?
Mm-hmm.
So the thing about D&D is that the system is very much geared towards combat and experience, and there are other elements of that. I mean, do you think that other game systems do the right thing in encouraging that same thing, or are there other game systems that do a good job in encouraging people to do non-combat-y things in order to hack and slash things? Blades is one of those systems that does, and I know a lot of the Apocalypse World based games do as well.
Yeah. So. I think Savage Worlds does a great job with promoting role play. D&D, ever since I started playing back in 1984, it's always been a combat-eccentric game, and it has evolved over the years. And now, in the Dungeon Master's Guide, you will now start seeing, how to role play chapters and how to DM and role play and the chapters. When back in the 80s, that was not even heard of. You would just kick in the door, roll your D6 for initiative, and just start killing kobolds and orcs and everything else. So I think the game has evolved since I've started playing, and I'm happy for that. But yeah.
I think in like Cthulhu, which I've just started playing recently with Greg, that's another instance of anything to avoid combat is not only good for your character's life, but also I think more rewarding. And it doesn't mean that you don't get to just have that little fun sensation of rolling stuff. There's still lots that you can do outside of combat.
Right.
I've never played Cthulhu, but I always thought that it was a more role-playing eccentric game. And I have read several reiterations of the Cthulhu series of games, and I really like that, and I would like to eventually get into that. And the noir stuff as well.
Yeah, it's very investigative and puzzle solving and research, and that's quite encouraged. Yeah. It's like in video games, like you get XP when you kill creatures,
right?
But if you take
collect 10 boar intestines every day.
But when you take like the good option, you don't get the XP because you didn't kill the monsters,
right?
It's a similar to that, right? Like if you kill it, like there's a tangible reward which the game is written to reward you for.
There's also this concern as a player that if you're thinking about a video game, you kill this stuff in part because you don't want them coming back to deal with you again. You don't want to have to, you want it cleared. Like you don't want them jumping up on you behind because they're fundamentally distrustful. Yeah, exactly. I do think there were games that work against that. Games like Dishonored or Thief, which literally Thief is an example of a game that you just don't want to get into combat because that's not your deal. Like you are so good at being stealthy that you can have guards pass you within 2 inches of your nose and not see you because you're the most unbelievable stealth person of all time. But if you get face to face with a guard, there's a good chance you're not going to make it. And so that kind of emphasizes that. But I agree that Dungeons & Dragons has sort of it conditioned people because of the experience set up to do that. I do want to give a shout out to the milestone experience system for that, by the way, because I think that improves things immeasurably for me in any way, in that I can tell people when you get past this encounter, when you get past what is going on here, when you've established this, you will level up at that point. And I'm the one telling you it. And in a way, doing it now, I almost wonder why I was so enslaved to the goddamn experience point table in the past. Like, why did I care that much? Because it means that we have to sit there and balance it out and go, okay, there's 5 party members, so that means I need to have 6 gnolls instead of 4 gnolls. Like, who the hell cares? Like, instead of doing all that, it makes much more sense to focus attention on having a balanced encounter that's challenging, that has non-combat moments and combat moments or whatever. And at the end of it, as people have said, you get the experience for that, and they are, in a way, they're adventuring through this and developing experience from the sum totality of what they've learned, not just, I can swing a sword more. Like, basically, these people are pretty good, presumably, at fighting to begin with, or they wouldn't have survived. What they may not be as good at is navigating a very complex political system, which, if they fall afoul of it, they're dead no matter how well they can, swing a sword. So, I like the idea of having the milestone system as something which can handle it. So, yeah.
7 orcs times 6 XP apiece is 42.
Oh, God. I didn't get into this for math, you know. But the other thing I want to say quickly is the other one that handles this well is the Numenera, and I want to give a shout out to them too, both in their tabletop setup, but also on the video game side. Torment is one of the few games that I've run into recently that really puts a lot of emphasis on avoiding combat and giving you experience for that. Even within combat, which they define as a crisis, you can still get experience by literally talking to people in the middle of a combat. So it's a little odd because the combat music is running and you're basically like, talk at this person aggressively. You know, you're like running up to them and like, plow, diplomatic headshot or whatever, you know, and you're giving them this sort of notion of something other than combat that extends around it. So yeah, it creates, you describe losing your slippers as a yes, I would imagine that's true.
Crisis of faith.
So then I guess the one question I would have then is, have you guys had a campaign where you had people that wanted, and this doesn't have to be just combat or non-combat, vastly different things, but they're both good players in their own way? Like, I understand we all try to screen, but I'm sure there have been times where we've run into people where it's like, they're good players, but this person clearly is not going to get along with this person who wants something the exact opposite. And I'm just curious if you guys have had that experience, and if so, how you've addressed
good players,
it.
But bad people.
Well, no, they're good people that are from very different sides of the playing spectrum. Like, I'll give an example of what I mean very briefly. I had a campaign many years ago, face-to-face campaign, where a guy and his cousin were playing. Very different people in life, but both very good people. One of them was playing a paladin. He was very quiet for the most part in real life, very quiet and reserved. And the other guy was playing an assassin. This guy, not so quiet, not so reserved. So they're playing the old classic module, which Dave may know, Palace of the Silver Princess. And they're running through this thing, and they come across this guy who's holding
my cane.
Yeah, right, exactly. But it's holding a statue, right? And it's clearly been stolen from the thing. So the paladin is standing there looking at him, and he's about to be like, "So what have you done with it?" You know, so come up with some dramatic speech. And the assassin comes up and stabs the dude through the throat and catches the statue. And the paladin, who again in real life is the cousin and very quiet, is like, I'm gonna have to ask you to not do that again. Like, it was like the guy from Office Space. I'm gonna need my stapler back. Like, he's just like, I'm gonna have to ask you not to stab people through the throat. Like, there was just no way that was going to work. And it was on me because I was inexperienced. I should never have had a paladin and an assassin in the same party to begin with, but whatever. Like, I messed it up. I admit that. But there was some serious problems there that I had to figure out how to deal with. So I guess I'm curious if you have had that situation where people are just very different and in terms of how they want to play, and you don't realize it until the adventure's already started.
Well, this is how the first game that I ever played in, when I started playing in '84 with my friend James and Franklin, Terry, and Gary, that's how it all began. And then when we started incorporating the first edition and second edition classes and, you know, player books and stuff like that into the game, all of a sudden here I'm playing a lawful good cleric, my friend's playing a paladin, and I got my friend Franklin, he's playing a wizard, and then all of a sudden Gary rolls up a half-orc assassin.
Oh boy.
Chaotic evil. And oh yeah, of course. And it was, and he would, you know, his parents ended up they split up, and then he moved up north, and then during the summers when we would play all summer long, he'd come out for the summer and basically ruin it for us. So my friend and I, Franklin, he's like, okay, I'll hold person him, you blade barrier him, we'll kill him. And that was it. And that's what we did. And that's our game that we played for 12, 13 years. That's how it ended. We took a long rest. We had just got done running from a couple of Githyanki and Undermountain, and we were resting in one of our small little treasure rooms that we just had packed full of treasure from all the other, you know, rooms in Undermountain. So my friend Gary said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go take a rest. And he went out to go smoke a cigarette. So we were like, hey, hold on. We got something. And then me and my friend Franklin, we were waiting all year for this, you know, we were waiting for it. So he went outside to smoke, and then Franklin told our DM, which was James, he says, okay, I cast Hold Person on him. And I said, okay, I cast Blade Bearer. And he goes, no, you don't. I said, yeah, we do. I said, we're tired of him coming down here and putting everybody's treasure from everybody's characters on each other's characters and trying to pick fights because he's a half-orc assassin and getting into all this, crap and getting Franklin killed because poor Franklin rolls a D1 every, on a 4-sided for his hit points every level, rolls a 1. So he's got like 25 hit points at level 32. So, and he's died and lost all his hit points. And it was just a big train wreck every summer. So we killed him. And that's how our game ended. He comes back in and he goes, David Franklin, you guys are a couple of dicks. And then he got on his bike and right away.
This is like a very low stakes version of Stand By Me. Like it's just like Jesus.
You're a bunch of dicks. You guys are a couple of dicks. And then my friend James says, "Well, that's great. You just ruined the game, guys. You just ruined the game."
But the game was pre-ruined, though. The game was already ruined.
We ruined it.
Yeah, like I don't. But the funny thing, I feel everyone in chat is like, I know Gary. Like it's like everybody knows a Gary.
Yeah.
There must always be.
Yeah.
There's always one. We had a Phil. It was a Phil.
Oh, screw that guy. No, I don't know.
Yeah, no, he's the worst. This was the first game I had ever played in at my local game store. I'd only played with friends previously or people I had met online. And Phil decides to join in a couple weeks after we started and just immediately starts with the PvP, which I just generally don't enjoy because I can get a little competitive. But he just starts in with it and saying, of course, this is what my character would do and all that nonsense as he's attacking our poor, already down monk. And that was a situation which did not end amicably. I think what ended up happening is the groups that wanted to the parts of the group that all wanted to work together moved nights to avoid Phil because the DM didn't want to get into a discussion about how it wasn't working. But on the other hand, I've had situations with DM recently who is fantastic and very open to feedback, and the half of the group felt very much like gung-ho, like just keep going with the pace, constantly moving, whereas the other half, all the ladies in the group were like, can we just like slow down for a second and maybe RP a little and just get some breathing room in there? And that ended up being resolved very amicably, and now we do some extra things during the week to be able to get that in, so the time slot doesn't get super cramped, which is really nice.
Oh, hold on a second. My son is banging in the door. Wait a second.
Beat that kid. Beat him.
No.
Oh my god, no.
Make him get really good. I promise, so quiet. It happened to my son. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh god. Stump is right. I find it best to avoid playing if you justify being an asshole with. It's what my character would do.
Yeah, just shut up.
Yeah, that was that was Gary. I just want to let you know. You guys suck. No, no. The thing about it is that I mean, and I hate to say this for this is the DM's fault. Like, I mean, I like in all of these cases, the DM, we are responsible as Dungeon Masters for making sure that if this happens, and believe me, I know it's not easy because I've had people like this, as I've just described in my adventure as well. This is our fault that we have to correct, because for the players who are trying to be on some basically equivalent level, I'm not saying that players shouldn't behave and try to be good people. Like, yes, that's clearly true. But the Dungeon Master's job is essentially to act a little bit as a referee. And that means that we got to be able to step in at some point and be like, whoa, like this. And there have been times, and that is intensely uncomfortable for me because I do not like conflict, like personal getting into conflict with people. I don't like confrontation at that level. But there are times, and I certainly don't be like, I'm the authority, blah, blah, blah. But there's times when I have to do that. And we have to be able to do that so as not to create what can sometimes become almost an abusive environment. Like, Dave, I was just thinking about, You know, like for years, like for years, he's just sitting there, and like the months are going, right, and it's like March and April, and you're like, here it comes, and Gary's like, I'm back, like kicks open the door, dry ice pouring behind him, and then just like runs roughshod, and then he leaves, and you're all like looking at the carnage of like, you know, looking at Flanders Field in September, and like that's raw. They should not have done that to you. Like your friend James should have like taken the reins before Gary got a chance to do this garbage. So I'm sorry for your childhood, but no, I mean, like seriously, it is the DM's.
Sorry for what happened to you.
I'm sorry. What happened? I'm personally angry at Gary. And Gary, if you're listening, what the crap,
I
man?
can feel the anger at
What
Gary.
the crap?
Well, let me play devil's advocate here.
Sure, literally.
Yeah. Advocate Gary for a moment. Let's get some Gary rights up in it. No, like here's the thing, like, you know, I don't think it necessarily is just the dungeon master's job to adjudicate. I don't necessarily think it would be. I don't think the onus should have to be just on the dungeon master, you know, because basically they're just a person as well, right? And they may not like conflict in any way, and they might not really be into being, you know, this leadership adjudicator of people's conflicts, because like, to be honest, if someone's got a problem with someone else, like, I don't give a fuck, it's your fucking problem, you know, like they can deal with that, you know. And if it's at the table, then we should deal with that together, rather than necessarily, you know, going to me and then I go to the other person, and then that person goes to me and I go back to the other person. Because I've been in situations where like you have to adjudicate for different people, and when I first started DMing, it was very much sort of like people talking behind one another's backs, as if we were in high school.
Oh, yeah.
And it would be like, you know, oh, the dungeon master, it's Will's job to like oversee this because he decided to run this game. Like, I didn't decide to run your problems in your life. Like, I decided to run a D&D game, you know. So for sure.
But isn't it your responsibility though? I agree to a point, but isn't it a responsibility to read the room? I'm thinking about like the one who really has. I'm just thinking about from the player's point of view, if they start getting into, I mean, yes, what adults should do is pull each other aside and say, look, you know, I don't know, we have some issue. Can we deal with it? Like, that's what we should do. But my concern is that I'm not even as worried about those two people attacking each other. But if I've got 5 people in a game, what about the other 3, right, that have to sit there? And if we have viewers and we're streaming this, you know, what about the viewer? You know, like, so I agree with you. I guess I wouldn't say, I didn't mean to say that all of it should be in the DM, but I do think that when it gets to a situation as bad as what we had with Gary, like the dungeon master at some point had to step in and say something, and maybe, you know, I don't want to get too down on the DM. Obviously, it's an extremely difficult job, as we all know. I just feel like I feel bad for the players in that scenario, and I feel like the dungeon master has to read the room a little bit and see things that might cause problems down the line, and be able to be like, hey guys, you know, if this issue that you're having outside of the game is going to be a problem, you know, we got to talk about it because this can't go on. You know, maybe not in the middle of the game, like not that second, but yeah.
I think I shut the game down in the middle of it one time because I had 2 guys cussing at each other and cussing each other out because one of them accidentally stumbled upon a gelatinous cube in a hallway and it just got out of hand. And I said, okay, guys, game's over. Thanks for playing. Next.
Wow.
Yeah, I feel like these days with streaming, I become less like tolerant of like dealing with people who become a nuisance and have problems with one another. To be honest, I used to have a lot more tolerance, and I'd be like, right, we got to sit down and talk about our problems, guys. You know, and nowadays, because it is a business, and I just don't have time. You know, like it's like, well, sorry, bye, next person, let's go. You know, let's play D&D and have fun, because you know that's what I'm here for, really, and that's what everyone else is there for. And if you're making the experience awkward for me, other people at the table, and an audience as well, you know, it becomes a lot. You know.
Yeah, for sure. What do you got, Johnny?
Well, I was going to support exactly what Will was going to say, and actually that's the point that I would jump in with, is that there's a very different thing between, you know, playing a game at home or playing a game at a convention or playing a game, you know, at your local, you know, game store and putting it on, you know, in front of people, in front of an audience, right? Not only is it a business thing, but it's also it's a piece of entertainment, not just for you, but it's for the people that are watching. And so there's a slightly different approach that you would want to take there, and it's everybody's responsibility at the end of the day. But it's, you know, if you don't have enough respect and for everybody around the table, at least to keep it professional while you're on screen, then that's a huge problem too, and that's a separate thing to talk about.
Agree.
But but it's at the end of the day, the person running the game, the GM, the DM, the master of ceremonies, however you want to think about it, they already have so many things going on in their head, and they have so many things to manage. They have so much essentially state to manage in the context of the game. It's really, I mean, it's almost unfair to expect them to also solve everybody's, to be therapists and solve everybody's personal crisis, or, the pet peeve, or be, tabletop teams to be about, wish fulfillment in a lot of ways. I'm not here to fulfill every wish of yours. I'm here to create a great story with all of you. So
I agree with that. And I guess the only thing I would say is that, and I certainly don't want to put, again, all the blame on the DM. I guess I would just say that stuff that is happening, I'm not necessarily, unless these are friends that we're dealing with, and then I'd like to see how they're doing as friends. But as players, I agree with you guys that my job is not to solve their problems, but my job is to keep the game moving. And if those people are getting into this disagreement that is a sort of fundamental issue, then it's important for me, I think, to be able to step in and to be able to say, look, this is what we need to do to kind of keep things going. And I would say that the earlier you can do that before it becomes a major problem, the better. It can be just as simple as kind of like after the stream, hey guys, I noticed, I just wanted to double check. How's everyone doing on this, and this? It can be quick, but that will solve you so many headaches down the line, where people are not then going to blow up on you and be like, I can't stand this clown because of blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh my God, where is this coming from? So that's all. I mean, you're right. I don't mean to put everything in the world on the DM, but I have seen situations in the past, not where I was DMing, except for that one example I gave, but other, where I've been a player in campaigns where it really kind of went off the rails because of a couple of personalities that just completely overwhelmed the group. And it really became, again, almost an abusive situation. And the DM should have stepped in those scenarios and headed that off a little bit, instead of what happened, which is, so we either leave the game because we don't want to be a part of the abuse, or we just sit there and stay and we're abused. And that's not right, and so I guess I want to avoid that, especially because for me, it ties in a little bit to prospects of, bullying and things like that I can see happening with, children and things that I deal with. So I guess I just wanted to throw that out there as something which we need to be aware of. That's all. But you guys all make wonderful points.
I think it's the player's responsibility to bring it up, first of all.
Okay.
I think that's where the first thing is. Like, if something is up, I think the player actually has to say it rather than just expecting the DM to read their minds.
Fair. Yep.
In terms of off-stream stuff, so at the table with Phil, right? I was the only
Phil, screw that guy.
God, he's the worst. Looked like a newt. I was the only girl there. I was the only girl playing RPGs at the local game store, and I felt that I almost felt like I wasn't welcome to voice my displeasure with this.
You weren't welcome to the sausage party. That's usually every D&D game.
Oh God.
I was very comfortable with leaving that particular party in the end, but it would have been, because I was also a new player, it would have been nice to just be able to have a conversation with the DM about it. But basically, when I did raise a concern, it just got brushed off with, that's how that guy is. He's been here forever.
Oh God.
Oh, okay. I guess I will go play somewhere else and have a great time. Bye.
Oh my God. Just so much nope to all of that. I'm really sorry that happened to you. So much nope.
Oh, I mean, I think that's where some of the gatekeepery culture can come from. If the DM's not willing to, I think, extend the hand sometimes. So that's why I try to make sure that I do when I GM. I want to make sure that everyone, if anyone has a concern, I try to be like, you can come to me and we can figure it out, just to promote getting more different kinds of people into playing who may have felt unwelcome before.
Agreed. And if you get it doing, and if it works out well, I think all of us would agree that when you have a party composed of a group of dynamic and different personalities, some that might some that are particular ways this way, but are different in other ways, that is incredibly powerful, right? Because you have a group of you have this sort of diverse group of personalities that are working together towards common purpose, and that can provide serious sparks, right, within a game, and can provide a lot of movement to the story and a lot of interest. And then we don't have to like pull it out of them, like, okay, guys, what are you doing? You know, like they're rolling down the hill. So some of that can happen. Well, that I think it's interesting because I do think that's something we have to consider. I'm just reading Kiana's comment. Yeah. And that, again, is an example of, you know, this is something that I think we're going to want to try to take on in a future one of these shows, because it's really a big topic that's sort of its own topic. But I do want to say, Kiana, that that is something which is deeply troubling to me on multiple levels. And it hasn't just happened with that. It's happened in sort of multiple other types of games. And it has lessened and cheapened the hobby. To the extent that it happens, it has diminished it. It's our job to expand it again, but it has diminished it. And especially, I've always found this funny, that you can have something in which the entire point of the game is what if. It is literally about expanding horizons, and then you want to throw it in a box and have only a couple people come into your country club. What kind of bullshit is that? And I find that infuriating on a basic level. So I'm sorry, Kenna, and man, I'm glad that things are changing and we're not in that direction anymore, because no.
It's like not just games either. It's just like a universally shitty thing.
Of course. Oh,
and
yeah.
It's even more annoying in D&D because it is meant to be a space in which you can do.
Yeah, of course.
You know, yeah, I don't get it.
It's crazy.
It's just common sense, isn't it? It's like, am I going to be a horrible racist today? No, that doesn't make
no,
any...
I would rather not be, thank you.
Misogynist today? No, I'm not going to be a cunt. You know, like,
One
people wake up and don't have to ask themselves. You know?
One of the nice things about the online space, actually, is that now if players are in that position, obviously it's nice to be able to play face-to-face stuff too, but a lot of us can get access to games elsewhere. You know, so if you have players doing that, you're not necessarily limited to going down to your friendly local game store. You could now try to reach out and find a group of people that are not going to be, you know, jackasses on multiple levels. And so that's a good thing, and it provides more diversity of experience for the players as well. But anyway, it was something that I wanted us to get a chance to chat about, because it was interesting to judge Will for his culture of inclusion. Far too inclusive.
I will say I've never felt that way in the online games that I played, which has been really interesting.
I was going to ask that. I was going to ask you that, Lauren.
Yeah. I think because the first time I ever played with Will was on a viewer game, and it just from day one, it never came up. It was very inviting and open. The same way with one of my home games that's online. And that one actually is all guys besides me, but it's never been like felt exclusive or anything like that. I mean, I know for the game that's coming up on Monday, I'm GMing. It's Will, another guy, and then 3 other ladies, which I think is really cool. So it's felt very much like, yeah, come and play D&D with us. That's, I think, a culture that Will has helped cultivate. Everyone comes in.
Yeah, and as a DM, I've gone from basically all male groups because that's what was available to. I've tried to get more women into playing games, and I always try to have at least one, but it's so hard because I think it might be maybe women will think that, hey, I'm a piece of meat and guys are just going to hit on me anyways. I think that might be in the back of some women's head as why they don't get into games like this. So, because this is predominantly a hobby for the most part ever since I've been growing up. But as I've gotten older, I've seen more and more women starting to play, which is great, because I think diversity in a group is good because, you know, men and women think totally different. And I think that also comes into a game as well when problem solving comes into play and stuff like that. But the hobby needs more women. And I'd hope that more women start playing D&D. So
I think the way they do that is just by like putting more women on streams, like just making it as visible as possible that, hey, they're here, like you can come too. And then I think it naturally follows from that.
Yeah,
I know I got into it because like I'm sure a lot of people, I think I started playing maybe 2 years ago, because my experience before had been like just all guy groups, and they didn't really want to say what they were doing. And then I started watching streams, actually, and just the visibility of that just gives kind of an open hand, like, come on, because you see other people doing it, like people who are like you, and you didn't see them before, and whoop, there you go, you can do it too.
Right.
Bam,
Yeah.
And it
Yeah, I
creates
know a lot about it. If you know, if you're a woman or a part of a group of any group of people, and you see people doing that, then you know that it exists.
Right.
And that's such a big part of it. It's just like actually seeing other people doing it. To, you know, it's almost like being accepted at that point. Because if you only ever saw men doing it, then it's like a it's not outwardly saying like women can't do this, but there is definitely the implication there that only men can do it. It's strongly implied, I think, just by what you see in what we portray in media, and being Twitch streamers, we are media. You know, there are hundreds of thousands of people that we reach every day, so you know, you have more of an effect than you can realize, really. About what you're putting out. And that's something that, you know, I've learned doing this over the past few years, is like, you know, I might not necessarily be trying to do a certain thing, but what I am doing, you know, does present an image, and appearances do matter. So yeah,
it's creating a new default, because one of the most insidious things is the idea that the default is this, right? And that also, by the way, and I am aware of the irony that we are 5 white people talking about this, and that is a concern that I'm also working on, but that the default is a, you know, cis white male. And that is, that's not actually the default in reality, and B, that is an extraordinarily damaging default without saying anything about it. You know, the idea that, I think some people get the idea that, well, I don't run a campaign in which which I allow people to, you know, make comments about women all the time. It's not that, right? It's not that unsubtle. It's not, you know, we're talking about simply the continual presence of one type of person only. That creates a dangerous default. And that has also been the case, I have to say, in my, you know, in fantasy writing, in the genre in which I write, for a long time was dominated by that same sort of thing, and with deeply problematic results. And so I'm glad, hopefully, that some of those things can begin to alter. Although, as I say, it's a big topic that probably is more than we have time to talk about right now. But...
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say, a lot of the defenses that I hear on the internet about it, or I've gotten in the past about it, is give me an example of like the worst time that, you know, a guy has said something ridiculous to a woman, or, you know, like, what are these examples? Like, I've never, in all of my years gaming, I've never seen this happen.
As a cis white male, I have never seen. They're like, what the fuck? Really? You didn't? They didn't come to tell you? I'm shocked. Like,
you know, I've been playing with the same group for 50 years, and we've never had this happen. It's like, well, yeah, you've been playing with the same group. You know, like. Yeah.
But so that goes back to that common sense comment that you made earlier. It's not common sense that people just don't see it because it's not a part of their reality, but there are so many people that where it is their reality, right?
Right.
So that's what it really is being aware of somebody else's reality.
Which is the whole point of what we do in this hobby. Like, that is the thing. What we do is in the imaginative space. So hello, you know, it's not a big stretch. So
I wonder what it would be like to be someone else. If only I could have a game in which
don't expect me to imagine different realities. Come on. But anyway.
There's only one universal truth.
Well, let us shift along from this to because I want to make sure we give a chance to get some QA from chat as well. I do want to briefly talk about this product review, and I wanted to mention this only because I've been jonesing to talk about it since last month, and I couldn't because Xanathar's Guide to Everything came out, and we had to have Askren jump all over and talk about how much he hated it. I'm joking, but it wasn't just him. But But anyway, I was excited. So I just want to quickly say, and if you guys have a product you want to talk about, like a supplement you got, please say so as well. I just want to quickly give a shout out to this one, which is the Rovanian Region Guide from Cubicle 7 Adventures of Middle Earth. As Will and Lauren know, I have been talking this up for ages. They officially sponsor me. It has nothing to do with that. If they didn't officially sponsor it, I still freaking love how well AME has handled this. And I love the sense of Tolkien that just drips from the pages, and this is an example of that. Like, this is designed to go with a Mirkwood campaign, which is going to be coming out separately as well, but just everything about this, from the flavor text, from the creatures that are created, from it's really, really great work. And it's great work because it gives all of these little adventure hooks within the context of, it's a supplement that just gives you, maps and descriptions of the people and all that stuff. But what it does beyond that is give you adventure hooks that fit beautifully into stuff you might be likely to run within this world, as opposed to just a gazetteer, which is interesting, right? But doesn't really provide anything for how, as a DM, I'm going to actually use this. Like, it's just sort of like, this is great, but what do I do to make it, like, how is that helpful to me? This gives you ways, if you're doing this, you might be able to include this in the following way. This is a particular character you could meet that would be found here that would do the following. That is super cool. And so, not to mention that it's beautiful. Like, I don't know if you guys can see that, but the art is gorgeous. As usual, the maps are on point. It's great. So I am a huge fan of it, and the Cubicle 7 people just continue to do more and more awesome stuff, and I am a fan. So yes, go get the fourth, unless you're one of my players, in which case don't do this. Will, do not go do this. But everyone else, get the fourth and get the Rovanian Region Guide, because it's awesome.
I actually saw it at Dragon Meet. It looks very cool.
It's super cool, yeah.
Doesn't Cubicle 7 have to run that stuff through the Tolkien Society before it's published?
You know what's funny? They do. And I was talking to the guy, John Hodgson, who runs Cubicle 7 at Gen Con. And I brought that very subject up. And I'm like, so what's the Tolkien estate feels about this? And he gets this funny little look on his face. Up to that point, he'd been like, oh, blah, 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 very like open. And he's like, we don't deal directly with them. And I was like, oh, he's like, we probably shouldn't discuss more about that. I was like, okay. So it wasn't that it was illegal. It was just sort of like, you have this image of like the Tolkien estate is like the nun from the Blues Brothers. It's just like, brrr, like Christopher Tolkien sliding back from the gate. They just do not mess with Tolkien. So I don't know. I guess they do, but they don't want to talk much about it, I guess, about getting it. But yeah. And they do a lot of it. Doctor Who, and I mean, there's other major Warhammer. They're going to be doing the Warhammer.
Yes, I'm so excited for the third edition of Warhammer Fantasy. Yeah, it's my first role-playing game. I love that game.
Yep. So, does anyone have a supplement they want to talk about? Will, why don't you show us your treasure chest? I'm just joking. Don't show us the treasure chest that'll break apart. Lauren, what do you got?
Not there yet.
Exactly.
So don't make him put it back together himself.
Lauren, what do you got?
Well, the version of Call of Cthulhu that we play on Greg's channel is Pulp Cthulhu.
Okay.
So that's been lots of fun. More because I had only watched Call of Cthulhu on Will's channel, and then we started doing this, and it's very much Call of Cthulhu meets Indiana Jones type of adventuring. So it's been a good mix. It's been a good transition coming from D&D, which was really my only role-playing game, into Call of Cthulhu. There are fun things in there. Like I play a psychic, which I didn't know was a thing, and Greg and I are still kind of looking at the rules and figuring out how it works in that world. But I think it's a fun variant if you've done the 1920s investigators thing, or you've done even kind of more Victorian era. It's like a pulpy, more action oriented change of pace, and I think good for people who are used to coming from something that's more action and combat than Call of Cthulhu necessarily is.
Which is particularly interesting because we were just talking before about not overdoing combat, but in Cthulhu, where, like combat is instant, like everything in Cthulhu is just leading you towards death, like pretty much everything, like just the whole thing. But that sounds like that's a lot more action oriented than most Cthulhu, as you said. That's cool. Like it's cool to think of it as having more of an action oriented feel. It reminds me a little bit of has anyone ever played the board game Arkham Horror?
Yes, I have Arkham Horror under my desk.
So, and there's a little bit more action associated with that. A game, by the way, for those of you who haven't played it, I defy anyone who's actually ever played a full game of it that hasn't forgotten a rule in it. It is the most fiddly of fiddly games that ever fiddled a fiddle. It is so fiddly. And I like Arkham Horror, but oh my God, Will, that game has so many sub rules and like, oh God. Your sister did some of the art for Arkham Horror? What? This is, what?
Oh,
Wow, trend with the knowledge I didn't know. Okay, that's cool. But
yeah, I had a housewarming back last year, and sitting a few friends from England there in Encounter Roleplay came over, and I'm like, I got this board game. Just went down the shops. I was like, asked the woman like, oh, play like a Cthulhu board game. She's like, all right, get this one. So I got it. I go back and a friend of mine, Gareth, who was there, he's like, that's like quite complex, right? And I'm like, I play these every day.
I know complex.
What I'm doing. And I'm like, oh my God, like, this was a mistake. 2 whiskeys in, and all of the rules were out.
That's funny. It is not a game you want to be playing under those circumstances. I agree.
Yeah, I saw a board game called Sir Francis Drake, and I was like, this game looks good. But it's one of those big box games that has about 20 different expansions with it. And there was a couple guys playing it over there, and my son said, I don't think we should get this game. There's just way too much going on. I mean, literally the whole entire table was full. I was like, I think you're right. Let's
I splurged on Mansions of Madness, the new edition. Splurged on it, have played it once, enjoyed it. But God, that box.
Yeah. There is some of those things where it's like, it's just, for me now, it's like, I can't, if the game is never going to hit the table, there's no point in my getting it. Like if I just am never going to be able to get the people together, what is the point of, so I now have to look for games that have a half a chance of being, and I like some of the dense meaty stuff, but just, it's not my crew. I need to be able to find stuff that is likely to sort of hit the table at some point ever.
I think that's my biggest hesitation in buying board games in general, is that it's hard enough to get people together. I mean, that's one of the appeals about playing online, right? Even before streaming, it's all about, it's easier to get 4 or 5 people online, but board games, getting everybody in the same room for the same 4-hour period of time, and not having them socialize, just straight around socialize and actually engage in the game, that's incredibly difficult. It's one of the reasons why I avoid board games for the most part.
Do you think they're trying to make them too complex too, Johnny, where they're trying to make too many little gadgets and gazmos and noisemakers and brightly colored pieces? I think board games are just getting way too complex now.
It's because we're used to imagining everything, Dave, and nothing is real. There are real things. My mind is fucking blown.
Yeah, you see?
That's basically true. I mean, I do think when a game comes out that has really wonderfully elegant mechanics, it's something that stands out. 2 ones I want to mention quickly: Mysterium, which is essentially Clue meets Dixit. It is the baddest ass family game you will find. I'm telling you right now, it is interesting. It is relatively easy to pick up. It is fabulous how well done Mysterium is for a family game or a party game. Second one I want to mention is by a guy named Ryan, Lorat, I think his last name is, but the name of the game is Above and Below. And it is basically it's this thing where you are trying to reconstruct a village, but you've been driven from your home and everyone is trying to construct a village, but there is below you a sequence of caves. And so you can go down and explore in the caves, and there are stories that are read to you, and it plays very much like Tales of Arabian Nights, if you ever played this game, or Star Trek the Adventure game, where sort of you get like these little choose your own adventure bits. And depending on the people that you brought with you, you might be able to succeed in these little adventures, and they give you benefits to the game. The cool thing about it is you can win by building buildings, you can win by harvesting, you can win by going down in the caves. It's fairly simple, and it only lasts 7 rounds. So as opposed to these games that last 12 hours, and good luck getting anyone to stay there, to your point, Johnny, like, hard enough getting them there for 4 hours, let alone 12. Yeah. But this thing is, in and, quickly and done, and it's really elegant mechanics. And the guy who did this did everything. He did the art, he did he just did the whole game. And I'm like, what? Like, the people this talented should not exist. I was really, really impressed. He released a sequel called Near and Far, which I hear is also good. But it's just really neat, and it's an example of a game that will hit the table, and my family has played like 4 or 5 times and loves it and wants to play more. That's cool stuff. So it can happen, but I agree that there's
Oh.
games that are too complicated. For
I
sure.
got my dad for Christmas Warhammer Shadespire, which is
Really?
like Warhammer. Basically, it's a board game kind of version of it. It's like the old Hero Quest.
Yeah.
I probably have it around there. Actually.
Is it like the 40K Space Hulk board game that
No,
these?
it's like the did you ever play Mordheim or
Yes.
Necromunda? It's a bit like that, but just on a static board.
Right.
Yeah, it looks quite fun. I've yet to get a chance to play it with him. He's painting up the models at the moment. So,
Oh, you have that kind of cool dad. I see how it is. Sorry, son, I'm painting minis. Oh, dad.
he's actually into his like historical miniatures and stuff like that. So the Warhammer stuff is something a bit newer for him.
Neat.
Is he an Axis and Allies guy?
He is, yeah, he likes Axis and Allies.
That's awesome.
Bolt Action is another one as well, I think. Yeah, he plays, yeah.
That's cool. I want to say quickly before we get to Q&A that Stump in chat mentioned before that D&D got him through a very difficult period of his life and that he gets mad when people are kept out of it. I just want to mention that since we were talking about board games, one of the people, I mean, I was an only child, so it was me, my mom, and my dad, and that was it. And so the games that we played, they had to sort of go along with them, I guess. And I always have given my father credit that I DM'd these one-person adventures where he played this cleric going through this adventure, and my father was like, you know, patches on the elbows, pipe smoking vest type college professor. Okay, like this was not his bag, but I always gave him credit that rather than just dismissing it and being like, well, to get this out of my face, he went along with it and he tried to engage with it, and he was like, and he really, I've always given him credit. I think it would have been a lot easier if he was just like, in quotes, the cool dad, and he was cool in other ways, but if he was like that kind of hip cool dad, then it wouldn't be as hard for him. But I've always given him credit that as someone who was definitely from an older generation and definitely didn't get this stuff necessarily, he still played it because his son thought it was important. So I wanted to say, Stump, that that's an example of something that was valuable for connecting me to my father. And so I wanted to bring that up too. So, unless anyone has another thing to review, we should take a few questions, I think, from
I got a
chat.
couple new things.
Oh, give me, Dave. What you got?
I just got in last week the new Starfinder flip map for this month.
Ooh, nice.
And also part 3 of the Dead Sons campaign book. I'm stockpiling all of my Starfinder because I am going to be, once I move out to El Paso, I'm going to be running an around the table game.
Nice.
Can't wait. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Dang.
Is this going to be, are you going to stream it?
Yeah, I'm going to. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what
Oh
I'm talking
yeah.
about.
Oh yeah. The new studio that I'm going to build is going to be really nice, and I'm going to have consoles for all the players, cams for all the players, mics for all the players, so everything will be of a good audio, crisp audio quality and video quality and stuff like that.
That's super cool.
Cool.
I am looking forward to seeing that. That's really awesome. Cool. So, chat, this leaves it up to you. You are watching episode 3 of Masters of the Dungeon. This is our DM Roundtable show, which has been really awesome tonight. It's always awesome, but just in particular, with Will from Encounter Roleplay, Dave from the Digital DM, Johnny from, also known as Video Store Cowboy, and Lauren as herself, Lauren from Lauren Irwin fame, who also is known as That Salty Ginger on Twitch. If you have liked this so far, please follow all these wonderful people. And Eric has already got it. See, Eric, who was one of our guests last month, this is why Eric is awesome. You should follow Eric too, because Eric immediately knows how to ask questions, and this is how you do it. You ask question in all caps, and then we will answer the question after that. So Eric starts with,
And you ask open questions.
yes,
as
like
well.
that. Do you think good? No, bad, no. Question: what are you most looking forward to in 2018 concerning gaming, streaming games? Okay, what's your 2018 that you're excited for, folks?
I am looking forward to doing more of my own content. I'm going to start phasing out of doing modules, and I'm going to start doing my own effed up ideas that I have in my head for stories and content for my players. That's what I'm looking forward to doing this year. Well, it's not next year yet, but yeah, in a couple days.
Soon.
Yeah.
Very, very
But
soon.
next
Year.
What
That's
else?
what I'm doing.
What else people got?
I'm actually going to be DMing less. I'm going to be playing more and taking more breaks. That's my plan this year, is to do a little less actually. Because end of this year, I was just like, oh my god. So,
Me too. Me
You
too.
were dying.
Yeah, just kind of phasing the couple of bits back that I don't want to do anymore, and just focus on the stuff that I really enjoy doing. There's no games in particular that I know that are coming out that I'm like particularly just can't wait to play, other than Warhammer third edition from Q-Core 7, which I will be playing an extensive amount of I'm sure. Other than that, though, I kind of just see when games come out, and when they come out, have a look at them. Really, yeah. I mean, I'm interested to try out new Kickstarter things as well. Not just my own ones, but I mean, I've got a bunch of Kickstarters that should be shipped to me in the new year that I should be getting the chance to get. So just trying out new things, really. And I'll still be doing a lot of D&D, but actually be doing more Call of Cthulhu as well, which I really enjoy doing. So kind of just refocusing back on the things that I've realized I really enjoyed in 2017, and just doing more of those and less of the things that I didn't enjoy doing so much in 2018.
Cool. I dig that. Lauren, Johnny?
Yeah, I know in terms of Kickstarter and RPG stuff, I think Kids on Bikes is supposed to be going out in March. And I was talking with Greg and Allison Robinson and Kiana about that. We were all really excited to do kind of a round table when it premieres, just do a round table, everyone GMs one game, and kind of
Nice.
See what that's all about, because I love that vibe. Like, I was a huge It fan back in the day, novel, miniseries, and movie, and I just love the idea of like scrappy kids in a weird town trying to figure out mysteries. So I'm excited for that one.
Yeah, it's pretty slick.
Have you tried Tales of the Loop yet?
No,
Sorry.
I'm gonna write it down though.
You need to check that out if you like that whole genre. That's another fun one for that particular element.
Boom.
There's a big renaissance of 80s inspired RPGs this year, and the upcoming one, it seems like.
On and offline. On Hyper had the Out Crowd for a while that it was doing, which was kind of 80s nostalgia.
I liked that.
Which is sort of like Stranger Things,
Yeah,
obviously.
Stranger Things, I think, is the inspiration for a lot of these.
Yep. Johnny, you got anything you're waiting for?
Oh, a couple things. So I am looking forward to doing to finishing up with Blades, the 6 and 20 Blades, and getting on to City of Mist, which was a Kickstarter thing that I think even Will had something that you guys did on your channel for a while.
We did, yeah.
So we're that's going to be the next big thing. But I'm also looking forward to getting back to sort of my roots. The first thing I ever did was I streamed a short-lived Star Wars tabletop RPG thing, a show using the FFG system, and
nice.
I absolutely love the system and the setting, and it just happens to be one of my passions. So one of the things I'm working on is doing a long form of Star Wars, especially given my reservations about the current film. But if I'm thinking about the thing that I'm looking forward to most about watching on somebody else's channel, there's actually two things. One is one of Will's new shows that Lauren's going to be GMing or DMing, because my daughter is going to be on that show, which is going to be quite entertaining to watch. And then I'm looking to Eric's new show over on Unmade Gaming's channel, Myth Dawn. So those are my two shows that I'm looking forward to for next year to watch, which is going to be incredibly exciting. So
that's super cool. Yeah, I have. First of all, I am looking forward to seeing many of the ones that have been mentioned. I lurk quite a bit in Dave's channel. I've already talked about watching Blades in the Dark. I have seen Lauren multiple times on Will's channel, and I am absolutely going to be stopping by to see her DMing this campaign that she's been talking about and checking out Will's stuff. So I'm looking forward to all of that for one thing. And we should also give a shout out to our regular contributor who's not here today, Askren, because he has a lot of good stuff that he does on his channel, and Askren just deserves a lot of credit because he just finished his Dice Timber, which raised I think $5,500, something like that, for St. Jude's. So great job out of him. I do a charity thing myself, which is very important to me, and I think it's really, really cool to see that stuff happening. A lot of us do things of that kind, and it's been really cool to see how successful he was with it. So awesome. I know Grant Ellis did. Grant, you did a lot of stuff with that too. So anyway, cool stuff. I'm looking forward to. On my own channel, I am looking forward to really two things. One of them is next year is going to be a fairly big year for me professionally, and I did a series of creative writing streams in 2017, kind of as an experiment that went very well, and I'm looking forward to actually expanding that. I'm working on a middle grade novel as we speak, and I have some other things that are on the burner that I can't quite talk about just yet, but will be soon. And so that stuff I'm really looking forward to seeing, sharing that basically with the Twitch community. I'm also looking forward to continuing the D&D stuff, and I really wish I could talk about this other thing that I can't talk about quite yet that is related to D&D, but if it all comes through properly, as I hope it will, then I'm looking forward to that. And I was about to say more, and then I realized anything else I say would give it away, and I can't do that. So I'll just say that I'm looking forward to this obscure thing that you have no idea. Yeah, exactly. ARV teasers. Yeah, exactly. Cookie. I don't. Really, I'm looking forward to being able to continue to build the community, because I have absolutely adored what Twitch has been able to do in terms of providing a platform in which we can build communities that we care about. I happen to be very blessed to be in the D&D community and have wonderful people like the ones you're listening to today, folks, be a part of it. Everybody I've met, I've really, really enjoyed, especially in that collaborative storytelling, Dungeons and Dragons community. So that's awesome. And I'm looking forward to seeing what my players and what they come up with in next year, because it's going to be awesome. Okay. Second question was favorite home rule for 5e. Favorite home rule for 5e.
I don't know where I first saw it, but I just completely assumed it ever since, where, and I guess it's just kind of a combat thing, funnily enough, is what potions is a bonus action, and because usually they're just an action, and I don't know why, but I always really liked that, just from a mechanical standpoint, because they don't do enough to cost an action, and it bugged me when I first started playing. It's like, why no, there was just a little mechanical rule that I've always adapted since day one.
I like that.
I think again, I don't remember when I started doing this, but I think we were playing long time before we started streaming a game of D&D around the table, and a player cast some kind of AoE effect on a bunch of 10 creatures, and I started, and it was an effect that happened every turn as well, and it all got affected, so I started rolling 10d20 and adding the modifier on every turn. I was like, man, this fucking sucks. So I just stopped doing it. It's like, I'm going to roll 1 for all of them, okay? Let them succeed or they fail. It's all or nothing. It's magic. And then that's pretty much what I've just gone with the rest of it. Yeah, occasionally I'll roll if there's like 2 or 3 of them, but like for large groups of enemies, just rolling 1 die for, initiatives and spells, saving throws and stuff like that.
That's a good one.
Speed things up.
I will throw one in there that I have always had, and that is critical hits. Critical hits are max damage. Forget this nonsense about critical hits are roll a bunch of dice. No, they're not. By definition, it's like they say, was that? Say again? Say again.
You got to confirm the crit first.
Well, yeah, you got to confirm that it's actually.
Oh my god!
First time I read that, Will, I was like, "What in the hell?"
Confirm the critical hit.
Sam hell is this?
It literally, it's like, if you could think of a worse way to stop flow than just like he hits him, Conan takes the. So wait, does he really though? Because does the axe go all the way through? No, he just cleaved his head. His head is off his shoulders. There is no head. It's gone. Like that's what happened. Come on, man. Like that. No, I critical hits are max damage straight up. There is no then roll the dice. That works both directions. If you get hit with enemies, you are also critically hit. But I'm sorry, this idea that critical hits somehow need to give us further checks and rolls is, please, like D&D doesn't subdivide combat enough. No. Critical hit is critical damage. End of story, in my opinion.
It's like you just rolled a 5% successful chance of rolling a 20 on a on a 25, and now you got to roll another to hit. I mean, come on. First time I read that, I'm like, man, this is a ripoff. But I mean, I understand why now, because of the different degrees of critical strikes on different weapons. Going down to like a 17 or a 16. So, but I have a couple of cool house rules that I do. I've expanded on inspiration for my players. I allow them to buy a spell slot back, or I allow them to use a hit dice heal as a bonus action, a maximum hit dice heal. I've kind of expanded on all of that stuff. So because I like inspiration, it's a great new quirk in 5th edition, even though it's from 4th edition. 4th edition, by the way.
Dave, not at all bitter about 4th edition. Not at all bitter.
No, I love 4th edition.
No, I know. I'm saying. I know you do.
Edition.
I know you do. I'm saying you were bitter at what they did to the poor 4th edition.
4th edition was a great game. I just wish more people would give it a chance. But anyways, I like to expand. I like inspiration. You know how you will tell the DM that you are inspired in some way to get advantage on your next attack, saving throw, skill check. So I've expanded on it, and I even let them do rerolls. And if they don't like their damage, if they can woo me enough, I will entertain anything pretty much. If they, if the trap explodes on them, I'll say, sure, you can use your inspiration. And then I also let them accumulate 3. Ooh. But they lose them at the end of the game.
Saucy.
That's awesome.
Hey, Dave, sounds like you've got Eric Vulgaris saying he'll play 4E with you in chat.
4E.
Eric is a great person to have at your table, so yes, you should take him up on that.
Hey, man, I'm so down with playing 4E. I haven't played that since I was 10. I have really good memories about 4E.
Oh, God. For those of us who were there at 1st edition, Jesus. Like, when I was 10 years old. God damn it.
Last week.
I'm so old.
Maybe we will do a small 4E series then, or something maybe in the future.
Ooh, 4E.
Imagine the hate that will get.
Oh, I know, it's true. Everyone's just gonna be like, "What is this garbage?"
No, but I mean, seriously, it's all up to the dungeon master on how the dungeon master presents 4E. Sure, if you want to have let's throw down our battle tiles and let's just do a pure tactical game, sure, you can do that. But the way that I DM 4th edition, I actually have people saying, wow, 5th edition's a really cool game. I want to play it. I'm like, this is 4th edition. And they're like, oh, I didn't know that there was role playing in 4th edition. I thought it was like a video game.
It gets a lot of bad press. I mean, when I was playing it,
I think it was media assassinated. I think the game was just media assassinated. I mean, it's a beautiful game, but
it's so funny.
Eric Vulgaris is correct. 4E skill challenges are incredible.
That's true. Oh, yeah. The skill challenges are neat. I agree with that.
In the Essentials book, now in the Player's Handbook, they were a little confusing. But in the Essentials book from 2011, they were clarified much better. And plus, in the Dungeon magazine that Mike Merles, I know about 4th edition, believe me. And also Mike Merles put out like a 12 article series in Dungeon magazine that kind of clarified everything too. So
that's true. By the time you got done reading it, the combat you started in 2011 was also over by then. Hey-o! I'm sorry. It's a little cold in here. I kid because I love. I kid because I love.
It's going to be more streamlined. I'm going to use the Essentials classes, and if there is more than one effect on a power, we're negating that. So you're going to get the damage, and then you'll also get the primary condition, whether it be a prone or a usage of a heal or something. But anything after that, giving +3 charisma bonus modifier to your brothers, uncles, sisters, third roommate's best friend. That ain't going to happen anymore in my 4E games. So streamlining it down.
Got it. I look forward to seeing these streamlined 4E from Dave. Johnny, give me a home rule house rule. Home rule. Give me home rule now. Home rule for England. Give me house rule. That's what I meant.
Johnny would.
I'm going to be completely honest. I am embarrassed to admit this, but I'm going to be completely honest. I haven't run D&D in probably a year and a half.
Well, no, but not just for D&D, and for anything. I mean,
Well, okay.
There's a lot of good games out there besides D&D.
Yeah, man, you play a bunch of them.
More people would realize that. I mean, I love 5th edition, but there are a lot of games out there that are just as good as D&D. So sorry about that. Go ahead.
No. It's so there's I can't think of one rule that really just kind of applies as something simple, but there are these one-off situations where it's like giving the players the control to make the decision, in a situation, like a rule situation, giving them the opportunity to be the expert and make the rule call, is I think something that I tend to do, especially with Blades, and Greg, Lauren, Greg can be incredibly passionate about his rules. So yeah, it's one of those things where if there's something that the player is really invested in, I'm going to let them make the rule call. or I'm going to let the table make the rule call, because it really is more about their enjoyment of the game and their how their passion for what's going to translate to the audience. So at the end of the day, if there's any house rule, I think that's it. It's the players really get to make the ultimate calls in a lot of ways.
Cool. I dig that. I dig that. Doesn't surprise me, actually, because it is true. You play a system that is almost like, it just seems so, I don't know. There's a lot of purity, I think, to Blades that I like watching. It's neat to see. So
Johnny, you're going to have people going, I think seeing that you're going to allow us to do loot. There was 12,000 platinum in this parcel. There was a Holy Avenger plus 12. I think those are perfect items for the encounter. Those two.
I will tell you what. I will invite you to play a game of Blades, and I will sit down and you can explore how much that really is a lot of the results of when you complete a score. When you complete an adventure, essentially, it's nice. The players have so much say in that. It's a little scary, but it makes it all, again, coming back to it being a very, very interesting conversation about how well they did in the game, and their judgment is incredibly important, right? Their insight into what they did is incredibly important to that. So
yeah, it sounds like trust and investment is a big part of it, like how much they're invested into it. Kiana asks, how much, or let me actually say what Kiana actually said. Kiana says,
make up some words.
Let me say some things. How do you hope to improve as a GM or as a player? And I guess we got to confine this to one, because where do I start? Many, many things I want to continue to improve on.
But myself as a person, fuck me. What do I forget? The beard.
Yeah, well, as someone who's already arrived. Yeah, exactly. But no, how do you folks want to improve? Is there one thing you want to really work on, I guess, in 2018, improving as a GM or player?
No. I'm kidding.
I was waiting.
Will, I don't know if you know this. Will's perfect.
I've been told that. I think by Will. So as I understand it.
One thing that I'd like to improve on a player, as a player, I wish my attention span was better. I often ask for descriptions twice before they go in. So it'd be like, someone will describe a room to me, and the DM would be like, you walk into the room and there's this person there, and there's this thing here as well, and there's this object here. And I walk in and I'm like, okay, so there's a woman here, and there's something else there, and here.
Lauren's making notes for.
Yeah.
Wait. So that's where Mike learned that bad habit. Thank you. I now have some place where I can put that. Thanks a lot. I appreciate that. You've done a great job converting him to that idea, that mentality.
Well, I think part of it is because we're running stream, and so I am all over the place when I'm streaming. I'm in the chat, I'm reading donations, I'm running the OBS and whatnot. And so I know I kind of get in what's happening, but it doesn't always go straight in. So I'm like, so the room, really describe this room, and then when it's done, I'm in it. But I do take a minute to focus, and that's just who I am as well. I kind of have a bit of ADD in that kind of sense, where I'm just bouncing around doing this thing and that thing. When I'm working on a thing, I'm usually working on 3 or 4 things. Earlier today, I'm updating the website, I'm editing an overlay for Raven, I'm messaging someone, and I'm listening to music. That's just how it works.
And then he's foolish enough to say, he's foolish enough to do all that, and then he's like, so if you ever need some help with this, just hit me up. I'm like, no, Will, I'm not going to hit you up for this, because you need to stop doing that. No, you really don't need other things to be done for you. That you have to do for people. Can confirm the best way to keep Will's attention is to make him into a character that he's really personally invested in and really thinks is a badass. So in our particular game, he's basically playing his Ranger as Liam Neeson from Taken. So he's automatically just like, bandits, hell yeah. I don't know if you saw this, Will, but the comment on the video where you guys went off and just cleaned up against the bandits, he's they suddenly went full murder hobo, and I'm like, he had enough. There's a darkness about Robar, and you just learned what it was, and so exactly. Just make him into Liam Neeson, it'll be fun. Anyone else, what they want to be better at as GMs or players in 2018?
Yeah, I have something. I want to prepare less, and I want to do more things off of the cuff. And I love that when my players do that. And I really enjoy it so much that that's why I'm going to start weaning my games off of the published Wizards of the Coast modules and stuff. And I know that's what everybody wants to watch and everybody wants to see, but I think for me as a DM, I'll get, because I want satisfaction out of playing in the game too. And I want to wean myself off of doing more structured adventures. Although I do change those up quite a bit, I want to start just doing my own thing now. That's what I want to do.
I dig it.
With less prep, just show up and say, "Hey guys, we're playing D&D. Let's go." In the menagerie, the moon is sparkling through the windows. What do you guys do as the vampire is staring at you? Never mind. I was going to be totally stupid there, but never mind. Oh gosh.
Lauren, Johnny, how do you want to improve at something? As players or GMs?
Just with something.
Just in life. Just, I don't know.
You've got to improve yourselves. Come on, guys. I mean,
I'm trying.
you guys are going to do something.
When you're starting at 100, how do you?
Thank you, Art. I want to get the hell out of grad school, but that's not related. In terms of DMing, I want to find my way to make it as fun for me in all the stages as playing is, because I initially got into everything because D&D was a huge stress relief for me just from school and all the projects I was doing there. And I had been, wanting to get more into DMing, and I DM'd some home games. So I want either through prep or, if it's lots of preparation or if it's completely improvising a session, I just want to find my way to keep it as fun for me as playing is for other people.
That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I want to do.
Yeah.
I like that. Johnny?
There are two things that I want to do in 2018. The first one is, the two things I want to improve. The first one is I want to get to that point where I feel like I'm a better tabletop streamer. Mm-hmm. And it goes back to exactly what Will was talking about a little earlier, which is there's all of this juggling that you have to do. I want to just get better at that context shifting and being able to stay engaged and on screen. I tend to be the GM in every situation that I'm in. And so I'm not playing as much, and because I'm not playing as much, I don't get a little bit more time to focus on chat or this, that. But I want to be able to improve the presentation and the experience for myself, and for the audience and for the people that are playing around my table and that kind of a thing. So from streamer standpoint and from just a tabletop streamer standpoint, that's like the biggest thing I want to do. And then there's this other little dream that I have, because I tend to have people like Trindane at my table, and Greg, and Louise, and all of these amazing, evocative, role players. They come with these presence and these characters, and they come with these voices, and I always feel like I fail them when I'm not able to respond. And a lot of that is given the way that we've played Blades, there's not enough prep time to be able to come up with something for an NPC that's got to just all of a sudden be this particular character in this particular moment.
Right.
And I guess it's 50% improv and 50% voice acting in a lot of ways, but I want to be better at that, because when I play a scene with Trindane or I play a scene with any player at my table, if they're going to bring it to the table, I want to be able to respond in that same way. And mm-hmm. that's important to me, right? It's giving them the great experience, and then the audience. And so that's the other little, thing I want to improve in 2018.
That's a good one. Yeah. I want to, I think I would agree that I'd like to be able to play a little more, although I do enjoy DMing a lot. And that's probably, I think the only reason I want to play a little more is if anything, because it also helps me be a better DM, to be able to see things on the other side of the table. And that's helpful rather than just always having the big picture view. It's nice to have a sense of what it's like to have a limited view, and what do you do with that when you're sort of confronting it. The other thing that I want to be able to be better at is continuing to broaden the base of people that play within my games. We've already talked about that. I want to be able to continue to broaden it. I want to get to the 50-50 that Will has got right now. now. My goal is to get to that 50-50 with everything, hopefully by the end of 2018. So I want to be able to do that on a gender level, and to be able to do it in other ways as well, and to be able to broaden to also people of color, LGBTQ, et cetera, et cetera. So I want to be able to do more of that, because I really am passionate about the importance of communities and the importance of what D&D can do as a part of that. So that's what I want to do more of in 2018 if I can. Okay, we have just a couple of minutes left, so let's hit these quickly. We'll just do quick ones and just in and out, just quick, and that's it. Let's see, where was it? I just saw it a second ago. No, I missed it. No, I'm scrolling down. Improve is a thing. Okay, so you have a crit hit, max damage. How would you do a crit fail? Okay, quickly. How does everyone handle critical failures?
Max damage on them, self-hit. Bam! They won't like that.
I eject them from my gaming table. They never come back.
They are never heard from again.
They are cursed.
I don't.
No, I don't
You don't?
necessarily.
I don't do fumbles, really.
Occasionally I do. If it's like a really funny, like,
Yeah.
I see happening in a particularly interesting or, I don't know, funny
Yes.
moment, then perhaps.
Yeah.
It's context
it's not a
sensitive. It's
Yeah.
context sensitive, yeah.
Yeah.
Let the player
I make-
decide how they're going to fail.
Yes, I
With the
like
concept.
doing that as well. Yeah, that's a lot of fun. Tell
Mm.
me how you fail, because they
How
always
about
come with
that
better ideas than I do.
Yeah, and
Just
that kind of
let-
gives them, that kind of doesn't, deflate their balloon of failing, because then they get to take charge of the fail instead.
And
True.
it allows.
Yes, you can own it. Yeah.
Best thing about that is that the players usually give you the fuel for whatever happens next, and that's the best part, is that they thought of it. So when when they're upset about it later, it's like, well, you kind of started that. So
I blame you.
It's
My
on
players,
you.
I blame you.
my players would say, "Okay, Dave, I critically miss, but somehow I just miraculously recover."
But not really. My miss is a hit in another world. And, yeah. Oh,
in
God.
one way I failed, but in another very real way.
I swear to God, this is true. I had a guy once that I was running a one-shot with who actually said, you need to remember that heroes don't miss. And I'm like, you need to remember that you're not the
That was
hero of
no
every
irony.
story. Like, literally said heroes don't miss. And I'm like, the one says different, and you need to remember that you're not the hero of your own story, of this story. Like, it was really funny and delusional. Okay, quickly, your favorite story campaign you threw your players to crawl through, and why? We're not going to spend too much time on why, because we don't have time, but instead, what was your favorite adventure that you ran? And if you can't break it down to favorite, your favorite recent favorite, I guess, adventure that you played in or that you DM'd, and why was it your favorite?
Call of Cthulhu, Masks of Nyarlathotep is a recent one, going back to the Call of Cthulhu thing I talked about earlier. I was like, one of the first Call of Cthulhu modules that I've read, totally different than reading a D&D module. When you read the villains in D&D, it's like, oh, he's a really bad guy. He killed all these people in this village, and now he's raising an army of the undead for evil. And then Call of Cthulhu is like, yeah, this guy's like a dog rapist. Like, he's just like the most worst. Like, like reading this, I'm like, holy God! Like, this is the worst words I've ever seen put together. Like, this is terrible. And I'm like, this is great. The best villains ever. So
And he's from Bournemouth.
Oh, God.
I'm done it.
I'm deeply troubled by all of that.
Most Americans say that as Bournemouth, by the way.
But yeah, great. Yeah, we do. Okay. Anyone else have one that was their
Okay.
is their favorite? I was like,
Stepping away from
the content was not. It was some reference you made that I'm just gonna pass on quickly.
I had a good time running my Savage World Zombie Apocalypse game. That was really fun. That was a nice break away from Dungeons and Dragons, from the D20 games. That was really fun. And it was sad because players died, and when they died, it was pretty sad. I'm sorry.
Still too soon.
I
Too
felt
close.
something breaking then. I once, one of the first games I ran on the stream was actually me and my friends who we started kind of roleplay with, and we found some zombie system, and we're like, wouldn't it be a brilliant idea if we all played ourselves in a zombie apocalypse? No. No, it would not.
No.
Oh my
I think
god.
that recently, a couple months ago, I ran Tales from the Loop. I ran 2 games for 2 different charity streams, one in October and one in December, and they were tied together because it was the same group of players, and it was over on Unmade's channel. And I think the thing that I had the most fun about was I'm probably 10 or 15 years older than most of those guys at that table. And so I'm throwing out all these references, and I got people in chat who are laughing their asses off from the 80s, and they're still figuring it out, and they're Googling, and then they're throwing things at me. And it was just this, it was this weird combination of let's have fun and fuck around with the GM, but the GM's fucking around with them. But it was so much fun. And we were telling a story that was very much a Stranger Things kind of a thing. And so it was nostalgia fueled. It was like playing in the Goonies. It was very much, fantasy driven at the same time. And it was a really good time. And I think what I loved most about it was that the system allowed everybody to be incredibly creative in a very unusual kind of way, which is very innocent, which is something that we don't see in systems, for a lot of this. I mean, the extreme being Blades is the alternative, but yeah. Innocence in a game is phenomenal, and that's why I'm looking forward to Kids on Bikes.
Yeah, that's cool.
Recently, in my home game, we're actually running Storm King's Thunder for my sister and some friends.
Good stuff, Storm Kings.
Yeah, but it was our first session back after a long break, and asked them what they wanted to do, and the Sorcerer and the Halfling Ranger wanted to start a casino. So that's what we did.
Nice.
And had no idea how that would work, but just, handy dandy Google, just real quick, like, oh, okay, that seems like a thing. And just completely improvised how a fantasy casino would work in the town of Phandalin. Like, sure, here you go. And managed to connect it to a bunch of plot hooks. So it was really, really nice that they came up with that. And then it was easy to just kind of thread that into the story.
It's funny you said it. Sorry, Dave. End of 2016, we actually ran a Storm King's Thunder session, which was Kraken's Gamble, which is I think on the DM's Guild, which is about a casino that the Kraken Society run, basically. It's set in a Storm King's Thunder world, and I was like, damn, that was a really cool idea. Yeah, I just played a little one-shot of it. It's a lot of fun.
The casino.
That is really cool. By the way, that's a very good lesson for folks watching that are new to the sort of experience, which is the rule always in improvisation is yes and, right? You always say yes and instead of saying no. Somebody gives you a scenario, you don't say I don't know what the hell you're talking about. You say yes and. It's the same thing as a DM. You don't necessarily have to say the yes part, but you always have to say. You always have to stop, right, and think. You always have to go, let me think about how to incorporate that, because the more the players feel invested in building the story and the world, the better the game will be for everybody, every time. Every time without exception. There may not be automatic rules for everything, but I think everyone would agree that the more the players are invested, the better it is. And you do that by giving them a chance to go in those directions. So abandon but the main subplot of this will be the greatest of, allow the game to evolve the way it does. And, the rest will take care of itself. So I think that's cool, Lauren, that you did stuff that way. I'm going to cheat. There were 2. One of them is I have adored the Adventures of Middle-earth campaign because of my own personal connection to Tolkien and because I got really good players that were Tolkien fans, and that includes Lauren too, although she isn't playing with us anymore. I really enjoyed watching these folks play together, and my particular favorite session was a session in which they were all sitting around in the Elven King's Hall, basically just drinking and eating these twice-baked honey cakes that Trendane's character made. No combat, absolutely gorgeous, fun stuff to watch. The atmosphere was perfectly there. It was just great. It was great fun to watch, and I think the players really kind of enjoyed it. I guess you'd have to ask Lauren and Will, but it seemed like they really enjoyed it and got something out of that sort of different experience of it. Second one was, I have to say, was the experience of earlier in the year with my Infinity Beyond crew. We had a new character came in. One character left. 2 more characters came in. They weren't expecting this character was going to leave. It was a little bit like the situation you described, Johnny, with Louise. And that was a very powerful moment when this person left. It was very emotional for him. That guy has, by the way, since then become a cinematic artist for Telltale Games. That's why he had to leave, because he got a job doing stuff. So it was like, I can understand that. But it was great to introduce these two people. And the session afterwards, there was a session where this guy had been introduced, one of the new characters, happened to know the parents of Trendane's character and brought up the names. And Trendane had not heard these names mentioned. He had told me about them for months. And so the guy says, well, you really do remind me of, Lasali. And Trendane was like, what? Like, he was just like, he was like, I'm just going to put the hackles down on the back of my neck, because he was like so like shocked by that moment. And I was like, yes, excellent. More moments of shock. I love stuff like that. So those were my two favorites from 2018. Last question we have, and then we're going to wrap, is does anyone miss Thaco? Not really. I mean, it's fine, whatever, but no, not really. Anyone miss Thaco?
Not really. Nope.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Ha! You missed nothing.
Stay dead. Stay dead.
Oh, God. Good times. This has been a great, great time for everyone. I'm going to move in the opposite direction this time. I will start with Lauren. Lauren, thank you so, so much. And where will the fine folks see you next doing things here on the interwebs?
Yes, things. As a player, I play on Sunday nights, not tomorrow, but starting the next week, as Pulp Cthulhu on Greg's channel, Grimjack21502. And then I am doing my first streamed DMing on Monday on Encounter Roleplay at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the Dark Cold Cases homebrew campaign D&D 5e. Should be lots of fun.
So you guys all have to go over there and be like, that's not what you said during the show. You said you wouldn't do this during the show. That wasn't the
hypocrite. Combat right away.
It's just all combat, like just rolling dice.
Don't talk to each other.
The players are like, can we do this? No, shut up. Don't ever talk to me again. Just sit there.
That's just to Will. I only did it to Will.
Oh, man, good times. Thank you, Lauren. That was a lot of fun. Will, when will the fine people see you? When won't they see you? Maybe that's a better way to...
They might not see me tomorrow.
Okay.
I did do a New Year's Eve stream last year, but I don't think I will this year. So I'm going to be back on January 1st, 1 p.m. Eastern for the Dark Cold Cases with Lauren. And at the same time, Monday's podcast, Turncloaks, will be released. So you can listen to me and hear me at the same time, simultaneously.
Wow.
Different inputs. You can watch the YouTube channel at the same time, and you could just have a freeway of my audio.
Willception. Yeah.
You're really on a three-way kick today.
Big on it, yeah. Can't stop, won't stop.
Giggity.
Well, he is the D&D sex god, so I mean...
Right.
Oh, okay, let's not go God.
Well, good Christ, you promoted him to God. This is what happens when you like 4E. Everybody is like power creep. Yeah, fine. You're a god. You're a god. You're a god. Oh, good times. That's gonna be awesome. Definitely go check out Will's stuff. It's gonna be good times. You can see both Will and Lauren, and you can make fun of Will and how he is also not adhering to what he advised you all to do today on Monday. Thank you, Will, as always. Johnny, thank you so much again for joining with us as well on short notice. Also, like Lauren, where will the fine folks see you next here on the interwebs?
Tuesday, we will begin the final month of Blades in the Dark 6 and 20. Starting on Video Store Cowboy channel on Tuesday, and then of course Wednesday and Thursday. And then there will be some announcements going along with that. So for what we're calling 6 and 20 Metropolis, which is the new game in the new system. So yeah, that's where that's happening.
Super cool, man. I love it. I thank you so much again for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Moving right along, Dave, when will the fine people see you next?
Well, you won't see me playing in any games. I'm not currently playing. Actually, I don't play in very many games at all anymore. I pretty much just run them. But I do run games on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And most of those games are every other week on my Twitch channel, The Digital DM. So you can see me there, or you can see me on YouTube. So, yeah. But I'm looking forward to changing a lot of my stuff in the new year, too. So
it's very dramatic. And by the way, your voice the entire time has been this very deep... In the new hour, welcome to Dave and the Digital DM. Like everything, it's just like I'm right on top of you and speaking to you in the.
Hey, Hey, it's almost midnight. We'll do the ERP show. It's starting at midnight.
I dig it.
Lingerie with the never mind.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Dave, for being with us. And definitely check
thanks,
out.
Lauren and Johnny. Nice meeting you guys. And thank you for being here tonight. It was fun.
Yes,
thank you.
Yes. Thank you, folks. Yes, chat. Can we get some love for all the 4 wonderful participants tonight in Masters of the Dungeon? You will see them here on Twitch and elsewhere. You will also see Dave and Will along with Askren back with me next month on this very show. And I'm going to close up shop. And I may or may not actually do a little bit of Fighting Fantasy Legends because I wanted to try to get some of that done before the end of the year. We will see. Anyway, but as far as this show is concerned, we will wrap it. So thank you so much to Dave, to Johnny, to Will, to Lauren. Thank you guys so much, and Happy New Year, and I will speak to all of you next year. I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you soon.
Bye,
Thanks, everybody.
guys.
See you.
All right. Cool stuff. So that is going to do it for Masters of the Dungeon. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. I always have a good time with these things, and it was really fun. I mean, all of these people, again, like I really love the D&D community. I think that's really what it comes down to. I really enjoy the D&D community, and it's fun to see. It's fun to see people just sort of engaged and talking shop. I like talking shop, and so it's always fun to kind of see that sort of thing happening. And I don't know. I enjoy having the chance to do that with these folks as well. So what I'm going to do is I bring my webcam down a little bit because that was odd. So I do want to thank all the folks that were on tonight. It was awesome. What I'm going to do, upscale my face again. I know I have to like, what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to stop the recording, but not the stream. And I'm going to take just a short break, just a couple of minutes. And then I'm going to come back with some Fighting Fantasy Legends, which was next up on the list. I'm not going to play super long, but I might play for like an hour and a half or so, and then I will wrap. I will not be here tomorrow, but I will be back on Tuesday when I will be continuing with a whole new series of things. Again, 2018 is going to be busy. I've got a lot of stuff going on professionally and stuff that's going to be associated with this channel as well. So I don't have announcements yet. Man, I keep checking email because one of the announcements could come in email, and I would love to be able to do that, and I can't do it yet. But I would love to if I could, and I can't because it's not. The person I don't have the information yet, so I don't have anything yet except to say I think. Hopefully, I should be able to have some announcement about some. I can't say what it's about. It's just going to be related. It's going to have a connection to the channel. I'll just say that that we'll be able to connect with it. So I'm very excited about that. Moving on down the line. But what we're going to play now, guys, is some Fighting Fantasy Legends. So I'm going to stop the recording and then I will restart it. And I will be back in just a little bit. So in the meantime, I want everyone to hold tight. If you haven't done so already, please make sure to follow the stream. Please make sure to check out other aspects of the channel as well. Don't forget to follow the channel. Don't forget to support the Patreon, subscribe, check out the YouTube, the Steam group, the ARV shop, all that stuff. Remember, discounts on subs is ending at the end of the night, or sorry, I should say ending tomorrow. So get your 20% discounts here. There is a sale on money, as IH or Pi, a Twitch streamer I watch a fair bit, likes to say. So definitely stop in and do that if you can. And thank you all so much for being here for this. But I'm going to be back with some Fighting Fantasy Legends in just a little bit. So until that time, hang tight, and I'll be back in just a few minutes. Don't go anywhere. Wonder what you would say if I could listen. I might be less afraid to play. I've seen inside you, I've known your mind, I've traced your instincts. I've watched your innocence unwind. Oh, that's it, you won't regret it. Well, that's it, now don't forget it. Well, this time you just can't find it. But trust me, you just won't mind it. Don't cry, don't blame me. Oh, no, no shame on me. I had to pierce your blindness, so I did you this small kindness. What did you think of the fading gleam? Did you consider the cost of every broken tree? Well, how did I touch you? How did it feel? Did you discover that part of me you thought was real? Yeah. Oh, that's it, you won't regret it. Well, that's it, now don't forget it. Well, this time you just can't find it. But trust me, you just won't mind it. Don't cry, don't blame me. Oh, no, no shame on me. I had to pierce your blindness, so I did you this small kindness. I often wonder what you could say. If I had listened, I might have been afraid to play. Well, I saw inside you, I knew your mind. I traced your instincts, I helped your innocence unwind. Well, that's it, you won't regret it. Well, that's it, now don't forget it. Well, this time you just can't find it. But trust me, you just won't mind it. They found themselves conversing under the pale moonlight. I find I've grown so hungry, I can't run from the cold. No one is left to feed me. The others are too bold. The vampire said I'm empty. There's no blood left to spill. And once the people grow too scared to come, I know they never will. The dog and the vampire, two friends in the night. If only they could find their way, they'd make themselves feel right. The dog and the vampire are less different than they seem. They both live on the broken shells of others. They live on broken dreams. The dog said, make me a vampire. I've nowhere left to roam. I want to live forever, but not if I'm alone. The vampire said, you're crazy. You'll never live it down. Your mind would soon grow hazy. Your world come crashing down. The dog and the vampire, they speak without words. A dream brigade, a nighttime choir. It never once been heard. The dog begged the vampire for hours upon end. The vampire just refused him. No pleading made him bend. Finally he gave in. He held the dog real fast. He bit hard, he drained his life, and never once returned. Through his tears he knew the loss. The dog had finally learned. The dog and the vampire, two friends in the night. If only they could find their way, they'd make themselves feel right. The dog and the vampire, they speak without words. Dream Brigade, a nighttime choir, they've never once been heard. All right. Okay, everyone, let's just stop this recording. Let me do that quickly. Hold on just a second. I'm going to stop the recording, not the stream, just the recording.